Assalamu alaikum, run things rude boy, Nabil Aziz, becomingthealphamuslim.com, and welcome to another episode of the Becoming the Alpha Muslim podcast. Now, you may have heard me speak about why I started becomingthealphamuslim.com, and it was because I noticed a huge gap in the market for Islamic content by Muslim men for Muslim men. And I am of the strong belief that we need more Muslim male content creators, which is why I've invited my guests today, because I believe they're doing a great job of presenting Muslim male perspectives in terms of being content creators online. And you probably have heard me hype them a lot and share their material on my social channels. So, welcome to Sim, Mahin, and Mort from the Mad Mamluks. What up, guys?
Assalamu alaikum.
Hey, assalamu alaikum. What's happening?
Assalamu alaikum. Wagwan, rude boy.
Easy now. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. What's good, fellas?
Good, alhamdulillah. Good day and good evening in Chicago. It's nice and warm tonight.
For real. Yeah, thanks for coming on the show. And we've got a lot to talk about today. So let's get into it. Now, obviously, you guys have been creating content for a while, maybe over, what is it, like 2 years now? Or just over a year?
About a year and a half.
MashaAllah, mashallah. So what I want to know is, I want to give my audience or show my audience your journey as a content creator. So why don't we first go around and there might be people who are listening that don't know you guys. So why don't we just go around and you guys can introduce yourself one by one?
Yeah, sure. My name is Sim. Me and Sheikh Amir Saeed of Chicago, we started the podcast originally along with Muhammad Sharif, who we call Moga on the show. Moga is not here with us today, but he was the one who did all the content design and everything on the show. But we started about a year and a half ago. So
yes, I'm Mort. I am basically another co-host on the show. I'm also based out of Chicago. I have known Sim and Sheikh Amir for quite a long time, 20 plus years, and so we decided to collaborate, or they invited me to be part of the podcast and experience as a co-host. And so
partly because of his big mouth.
Yeah, I'm the guy that probably gets hated the most on the podcast for some of my views, because I am unapologetically an opinionated person, and but I enjoy it. I enjoy the feedback. I enjoy hate. I enjoy love. I enjoy it all. So that's pretty much it. And then we got Maheen sitting over there.
Yeah, so
pretty.
I'm Maheen. I'm like the outsider in this gang because these guys all grew up together. I'm also the only guy here who wasn't around from day one on Mad Mamluks. A lot of y'all may not know that, but if you go back to the early podcast, you won't hear from me until like episode 9 or 10, I think, when it popped up. So I'm sure we could talk about how I kind of like landed here. But I've known Sim very faintly prior to the last year and a half, because he's good friend. He's I am good friends with his little brother, and so I've known his little brother for a long time. I've seen him in passing. Mort, I've met him in passing like years ago.
I think it was like one time.
He was on Eid.
It was an Eid, and you somehow knew.
And you had a huge beard back then.
My beard was probably down in my belly button.
Yeah, it was. And I remember you bought me coffee that day.
At Caribou Coffee?
Caribou, right.
Yeah, you were with my cousin.
Right.
Yeah.
So I've kind of like met like Sheikh Amir. I'd never met him until I joined the podcast, but I knew his brother Adil. So, but I'm not from Chicago. I'm from Ohio originally. So, and I'm an engineer. I have a mechanical engineering background, and I work in a steel mill.
So just one quick correction. I wasn't there from the beginning either. Actually,
oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, I was actually in Europe when you guys kicked off the first podcast.
Right.
I was in Europe for about 3 months. And then when I came back, they had started this podcast. I'm like, no, I thought they were trolling me. And I'm like, nah, you clowns made a podcast. But I mean, it made sense because we'd have all these awesome conversations in the basement. So it's kind of like a natural progression because we'd sit there for hours, literally Friday, Saturday, Sunday, just chatting to breathe, right? So when they came back, I'm like, wow, what a great idea. We should have thought about this a long time ago. And like Sim said, it was because of Sheikh Amir and Moga and Sim together.
It was really Sheikh Amir who was kind of gave you the confidence because every one of us is like, okay, well, why would people want to hear us? You know, I'm sure that's been proven wrong in many different ways. I'm sure there's so many different insights and things that we can bring to the podcast and had brought to the podcast. But people in general gravitate towards people of knowledge, and hence he kind of gave us that confidence to move forward with it. Just having him there, you know.
Yeah, I think one of the really good things about you guys' show is the different dynamic that each of you brings to every episode, especially when the four of you are gathered together, or the five of you. I haven't heard too many episodes with Moga on, but for example, like Mort is the like tank. He's tanking the hate from all of the haters. Because like he's so opinionated and his opinions are generally quite abrasive to snowflakes. So then he allows the rest of you guys to operate or give more space for you guys to operate the way you want. And then Maheen is I guess like the comedic relief or comic relief. And then Sheikh Amir is the like scholarly angle. And then Sim is like the wise man of the group, you know, is what I'm saying. So, I mean, it's a really, really fun dynamic. And, I think it's very enjoyable just listening to you guys talk. Personally, my favorite episodes are the episodes where it's just you guys and not the guest. Because when the guest is there, you know, it's like you have to be on a little bit of your, you know, good behavior.
Yeah.
And you can't really, you know, be yourself. And even sometimes the guests will be, you know, they'll be a little bit political or they'll be guarded and they won't be themselves. And that happens, you know, once in a while that's the biggest challenge.
Yeah. I mean, having guests that are guarded. And that's what I always tell Mahin. I'm like, look, man, I'm sure we're in Chicago. We're a hub for everyone coming through, all these scholars coming through, but getting quality guests that will be able to talk to you, you know, in a genuine way, like just be real with you, you know?
Yeah, Nabil, you notice that I don't really get on the shows with the guests because I'm too abrasive. Like I'm not contained enough.
You were on a couple. You've been on a couple of like the Dawood Walid show and Imam Omar Muhammad.
So these guys will bring me on a podcast when they know for sure that the guy I can incite him to say something. Like they'll bring him. Like
it's not just that. I mean, well, at least what I do is I look at your background, right? You have a lot of when you're growing up, you had a lot of black friends, and you hung out with in that hip hop crowd. So I'll kind of bring you in those shows, like we did with Kayem and Dawood Walid. You know, a lot of things related to black culture. Even though you end up pissing off a lot of black people.
He pisses off suburban Daisies who want to speak on behalf of black people.
Yeah, it's true.
Correction. Every quote black host that we've had, and I use that term very loosely, has pretty much agreed with a lot of what I said. Right?
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, on most points. It's usually the people that are not part of that are the so-called social justice warriors that cry about everything. They're the ones that cry about it. Like, I think at one point, Sim, wasn't there a individual, like 2 or 3, like, Desi suburban kids that were appalled at the fact that I was talking about black issues because, apparently I'm not black, so I can't talk about them. And I found it to be funny that, we can talk about, you know, white people all day long and talk about, you know, how they are and all that stuff, but there's not a single white person on the show.
Oh man, don't get you.
Sorry, dude. I'm just saying, dude. It's my thought, dude.
We opened up a can of worms already.
Anyways, that's my point, Nabil. You know how it is. I just say what I feel, and that's what I feel. So I don't care what people say. At the end of the day, I'm going to say what I feel.
Alhamdulillah. And you know what? The only time you had a guest that is like as real as you guys got a lot of shit for it, which is basically my episode, which opened up like a whole can of haterade on your asses.
Yeah, I mean, look, if you end up having a show where you're just going to be making a show just for the sake of, not upsetting anyone, and it'll just conform to what the community wants or the expectations of what let's just put it out there, a liberal Muslim community and its expectations of its community members. And if you make your show just to fit in that, no one's going to listen to it. No one. Well, how are you separating yourself from the pack?
Yeah, and that's something that some of the online business people that I learned from say. One in particular, his name is Ramit Sethi. He says, the world wants you to be vanilla, but the moment you become vanilla, they're going to abandon you because now you're just like everybody else. And oftentimes the people who are criticizing you or want your content to be presented in a certain way, those people aren't really your audience. They're just there. It's sort of like concern trolling, they'll put on that fake concern, like, I'm really concerned about the way you guys present yourself, and it's a nasiha, brother. And really it's just their, ego masturbation masquerading as nasiha.
Yeah, man. Dude, I'm a guy who likes to go out and meet new people, learn from their experiences, find out why they hold the views they do, and come out with something,
I'll be honest, I like to be convinced. So if you can convince me of something, I'll listen, right? And if you can't convince me, I'm just going to say, wait a minute, stop, stop the bull crap. Stop it right now. Yeah. It's not cool, dude. But I will say this. Sometimes maybe I do push some opinions a little bit more because I'm trying to provoke thought. I'm trying to make people think outside the box. It's not exactly what what people around you are painting it to be. And if we think in a track-minded way, it's not going to help us, right? Especially nowadays in 2017, where we have so many different views, so many different issues that are going on. So I think, I'm not saying that I'm lying about my opinions. I really do hold a lot of my opinions, but maybe I'll emphasize them more because of the fact that I think we don't have that balance, opposition, in at least the American Muslim community today.
And Maheen, do you feel like a lot of people, they don't really, especially the Desi crowd, like they don't really have a sense of humor. I notice you try to get a laugh out of people a lot, and then so like the guest will it'll fall flat, or the guest will be a bit uptight, or Sim will actually try to hold you back, trying to.
I feel like Sheikh Amr. Actually holds tries to always like, oh, he's just kidding and stuff. It depends on the guest. I'll give you an example.
Look, the whole thing is the adab thing, and I think that there's a time and a place for that. And the thing is that most of these guys who come in as guests on our show, they're around our same age. Like, no, I don't think we've had anyone that older, except for Imam Umar
and Sheikh Amin.
And they, of course, they'll get that kind of adab that they deserve, But everyone else, hey, we all grew up together, or you're our age, so we're gonna talk to you like how we talk to our friends.
And even Sheikh Amin was really like chill. Like, you remember that podcast? He's very laid back. Like, you know what I mean? And I think when that show got a real positive reception from a lot of people in Chicago, because they were like, oh, we didn't know Sheikh Amin was like that. Like, he was into, like, watched Arsenal, and whatnot.
Yeah, true. And I think one of the things that, I get sometimes what Sim is saying, but I think it's important that Maheen does that, because what happens is it shows the human element of these people. A lot of times people we bring on the show, people are putting them up on a pedestal. I'm sorry. And that kind of breaks the ice and shows the listeners that, hey, these guys are just regular like everybody else.
As far as the question you had about like Desis and their sense of humor, for the most part, people, it's interesting because we have a lot of like Deobandi types that listen to our show, right? In Chicago, of course, because we're Chicago Sharif. But I've rarely ever heard them being critical, except this one time. I remember you were telling me you were at the masjid. Remember the show we did with the second show with Daniel?
Yeah.
And I was talking about like fellatio, like my friend was getting head outside a frat house.
Oh yeah.
And I was like, well, technically he didn't give consent, so she raped him, right? You remember that?
Yeah.
And then some guy came up to Sim at the masjid is like, he shouldn't have been speaking like that with the sister in the room. Or there was the show with Kareem too. I think I was talking about how like, yeah, man, the problem with Muslim women is they don't just put out. You know, we wait 25 years, man. We keep it in our pants, trying to keep halal, get married, and then we get stonewalled, bro.
Yeah.
You know.
But you know what, though? To be fair, though, I mean, honestly, when it came to the issue of the woman being on the show and you dropping that, I was kind of like, me, Mug, like, I don't know. But I mean, if there's no woman on the show, hey, I'm cool with it, man. You know what I mean? Like, talk about it. But it's kind of like in a way where it's like it got awkward for a second.
I mean, they want to be treated equally, so they should be able to engage in that kind of conversation.
Yeah, but I ain't trying to treat them equally, bro. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I mean, that's one of the things, you know, what you guys hear is what I've basically allowed to be heard. So sometimes we can go a little bit more crazy. And so imagine, I'll just leave it to your imaginations out there.
So one of the things is this. I think some people don't really question your humor too much because, let's be honest, okay? A lot of people are listening because we're saying things that they want to say, but they don't really have the you know, and actually they probably do say it within their own private circles, and so they can relate to it, right? And let's be honest, a lot of things that we do talk about are kind of related to the nature of how men are. You know, we're just that way. You know, it's a candid conversation among men, right? And it just ends up being that way because it's casual.
Yeah, you know who's like that in like especially on Twitter is Sheikh Hamza Maqbool. We've had him on a couple times.
Yeah,
like Sheikh Hamza's a guy that'll just come in here, just like lay it down raw.
Yeah,
like he's got no filter either.
Yeah.
So like, I mean, like, and I think him being in Chicago, like I've noticed that a lot of people who associate with him have loosened up a bit too, just in the way they talk, because they just like, you know, they're like, well, he's someone who's you would consider a God-fearing person, and you know. But at the same time, he's a real human being. We're not like, you know, sage, like walking around with our, you know, eyes on the ground and, you know, whatnot.
No. I get that totally. And what's cool is this, though. I mean, and I'm not trying to generalize here, but compared to the guests that we've had on the show and meeting some of these guests, I think I would say that Hamza is probably the same on and off the air. Whereas sometimes there's certain guests that they're completely different off the air, and it's like, wow, you were so much cooler off the air, dude. You know what I mean? Like, if you just been that way, it would have been so cool, you know? Like, it would have been a great conversation. But I think people, obviously, for their own, I'm not knocking it, but, you know, they have their own platforms and agendas they're pushing forward, so they need to behave a certain way. But I prefer that raw, unedited.
I like it, too. It's just that when they be our strategy, I know, like, that might be leading into one of your questions. But when we were starting off this podcast, we were like, okay, well, how do we reach out to the Muslim audience in the West, in America, the UK, Canada, Australia, people who will understand what we're talking about? I mean, I think it's great that people around the world are listening. I mean, we have a few hundred listeners just in Saudi Arabia. It's just crazy to me that there's people in Saudi Arabia listening to us. But the way our approach was that, you know, let's invite people who are well known, and they'll share the content on their social media platforms, and that way our brand, our audience will expand that way, and people hopefully will have you know, they'll get to know us a little bit better through that social media platform that celebrity has.
Hey, Nabil, let me ask you a quick question. So when you first heard the podcast, what was your initial opinion of us? Like when you heard it, like, did you think, oh, these are a bunch of Desi guys just trying to act cool on the radio? You know, I mean, a lot of people have their own reservations. You know, I mean, I know I'm a person that has, I can be opinionated. So if I hear a name or see something or maybe previous content, I go in with preconceived notions. I'm guilty of that. But I'm just curious to know, like, what you thought before, like, you came on the show and while you were researching the show, and what were your feelings? Like, what did we come off as a podcast?
I can't remember exactly which episode it was that I first heard you. I think I got onto the Mad Mamluks about halfway through your guys' journey.
I thought you heard about us through Sheikh Hamza Maqbool's Twitter feed or something.
Yes, exactly. So you guys had Sheikh Hamza on like a round table, and then I'm a big fan of Sheikh Hamza because I also enjoy how he keeps it real, and he looks like a straight up proper, you know, Maulvi the way he dresses, but then he's got a bit of swag when he talks, you know.
Yeah.
So I enjoyed that. So after that, I heard like he shared it on his Twitter feed because I follow him on Twitter. And then, okay, who are these guys? The Mad Mamluks. And it's a very good, the name of the podcast is actually quite eye catching, and it's good branding on your part as well, the way you guys named it. So then I started listening to more episodes. And the one episode I really remember was the first episode you guys did with, subhanAllah, what's the brother's name that goes to Syria?
Muhammad Shirazi.
Yeah, Shirazi. And then I remember you guys talking about the crabs in the bucket thing, because you guys were talking about dealing with people who, are hating on you, and Shirazi was also talking about, how people would criticize the way he does his da'wah, working with the inner city and things like that. So that really endeared me to you. And then I remember just hollering at Sim for something on Twitter. I don't know if I DM'd him or I messaged him. I just added him or something like that, and then we got to talking. And then I shared some of my material. And then after that, that's how it all got together. But I enjoyed the authenticity of the way you guys have your discussions. And you guys just seem to me like this real regular dudes that I could, kick it with, which is one of the reasons why I support the podcast so much and I promote it as much as I do,
Well, we are going to kick it though. I'm coming to Dubai soon, I told you. So we're going to kick it. Hopefully, inshallah, we'll do a podcast like live in person. So it should be a little bit more funner. I can be unrestricted on your podcast.
Yes, we will. We will. So yeah, Sim, why don't you tell everybody sort of the journey? Like what motivated you to actually start the podcast? I know you've spoken about this a little bit on your show before, but for the people who aren't so familiar with the Mad Mamluks, can you just tell them the story?
Yeah, me and Sheikh Amr were big fans of Joe Rogan's podcast, and we would be debating a lot of the different ideas that were coming on that show, and we're like, there's a lot of people who are talking about some of the theological arguments that some of his guests bring on, and we're like, well, how do we engage with them? And at that time, I was messaging him on Twitter and trying to get his ear and trying to get him to invite some of our luminaries in our community on his show. And I was telling Sheikh Amr, I'm like, maybe we should go out there and just try to jump on his show, But then, Joe was one of his episodes. He ended up going off on a tirade where he was talking about people who constantly message him, trying to get his attention on Twitter. And he was kind of poking fun at it, like how these people don't do anything themselves, and they try to use other people's platforms to, to get their message across. And so, and that kind of resonated with me as a moment of truth. I remember listening to your Bruce Lee moment, and that was kind of my moment. I kind of fell back in my chair and I thought about it, and I'm like, what, this guy's right. It sucks that he kind of called me out like that, but he's right. And it's let me look into this, and I'm gonna think about doing a podcast. And I'm like, wait, what the hell are you thinking? I'm just thinking in my mind. I'm like, you're an introvert and you don't even like talking to people in general. In terms of being a person of a talkative nature and going out on the public sphere. In that sense, I like one-on-one conversations, but being on the stage and stuff like that kind of terrified me. So, eventually, I listened to a lot of Tim Ferriss as well, and he kind of gave me that confidence that Tim Ferriss always usually brings on these really successful people who end up making you do things that you normally wouldn't have thought of doing. And, I usually attribute a lot of my, influences from those two people, Rogan and Tim Ferriss. And they kind of propelled me to push Sheikh Amr into this. And I'm like, okay, we'll give it a shot. If we crash and burn, who cares? We're not that well known anyway. We're not, there's not much to lose, basically. So, that's basically how it kind of, the ball kind of started to roll. And then we figured out a name, and the name was kind of inspired by my love for history. the Mamluks it came at a time after the Mongols had devastated the Muslim world, and the Muslim world was at a low point in that time in history. And I want to harken back to those memories of how the Mamluks kind of rescued the Muslim world, and it kind of sounded like a metal band, punk rock type band. And I always wanted this. One of my childhood dreams was always being in a band and having, 4 guys, being on stage and, rocking out and stuff like that. So it kind of brought all these different elements into play, and it's just a collage of all that,
Yeah, I think one of the reasons why people will, be discouraged from starting something like this is because when they listen to Joe Rogan and people like Tim Ferriss, they listen to them now. So like basically Tim Ferriss after he became Tim Ferriss, or Joe Rogan after he became Joe Rogan. And they'll get discouraged by that because they think, oh, I'll never be able to produce something of this high quality. But the way you get over that is by listening to Tim Ferriss's first episode or Joe Rogan's first episode of his of their podcast, and then you realize that everybody starts from zero.
They were terrible. They were terrible. They're still up there. Like, people can go on YouTube and see some of the content that they put out. And this is not even that long ago. This is 3-4 years ago, max. And you should see like the webcams. I think Rogan started off with like a PC camera. Him and his friend are like trying to figure out how to work the camera on their computer. So
yeah, exactly. And once you see that gives you sort of a little bit more courage in a way, because now you realize that it's okay for you to suck at the beginning, and it's okay for your audio quality to be bad or your video quality to be bad, and your verbal tics to be still in the content that you publish. That's one of the reasons why when I started, I was able to hit the ground running and put out so much content so fast, and then grow so fast, because I didn't care about having everything perfect from the get-go. And comparatively, I've been at it, I guess a little bit, maybe about a year now. So you guys have a 6 months head start on me. And then there's maybe a slight difference in where we are in terms of our audience, because, I didn't really waste time, obsessing over the little details. So can you tell us about the early days? So how much, what did you guys do to, get ready to get started? Did you guys, spend a lot of time researching,
man,
like that?
Yeah. First, I think this is like an ongoing project of mine, is just trying to find out who's doing what in the Western Muslim world, because everyone is so disconnected. Everyone has their own little social media platforms and their followers and whatever. So first figuring out who's who, because I was disconnected from the Muslim community for a while, not in terms of for anything in particular. It was just a willful choice that I made, where there was just a lot of noise in Chicago. There's a lot of Muslims here. I think Mort felt the same way, right, Mort?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the big things was, I at least I can speak for myself, is I saw a lot of division about trivial issues that really don't affect anybody's day-to-day life. And I'm like, look, man, I don't want no part of it anymore. Like, you guys can sit there and argue about stuff all day long. And don't get me wrong, some of these subjects are things that, people should know about their religion. I just feel like it gets over popularized. And the thing is, I felt the same thing that Sim felt. You know what? I'm gonna take a step back, and I'm just gonna be myself and just chill for a minute, and
that period of,
I grew a lot
of separation. It allowed us to kind of, go through a lot of growth,
so for me,
maturation and growth.
I was able to step outside the box, because I was traditionally looking at it from one lens for a very long time. And so sometimes when you step out of something, or just put it on pause for a minute, you get to kind of reflect on some things. And so I had a chance to reflect on, the way I view my community, the way I view my position in the community, the way I view what's important and what's not important, in terms of, just politics, religion, family life, everything. And so that pause allowed me to kind of reassess what's important to me and what I actually want to focus on.
So after we separate ourselves and we want to come back in the community, we want to figure out who's who. And we saw that, holy cow, guys like Yasir Qadhi and Omar Suleiman and all these people have hundreds of thousands of followers now, maybe millions on their Facebook. And I know when we used to hang out with these guys, they used to be around, 10, 20,000 likes on Facebook. And,
not even. Dude, I remember a time, so I'm going to just take you on a little bit of a story here. So I think me and Sim, I'm not sure about Maheen, but in the Chicago scene, we were early on where the whole idea of having like Al-Maghrib type meetings and things like that weren't really non-existent. Like they didn't happen, right? It was mainly like, little programs on a Sunday or Saturday, maybe one student of knowledge would have held a class and that was it. And so we saw the evolution of organized, like religious type of events and things like that. The only thing we had traditionally was ISNA, which was like once a year, and everybody came to. So anyways, a lot of these people that Sim is talking about now, they were really literally coming to Chicago to establish their own presence, meaning or build up their own their brand. And so we knew a lot of these people back then when they were nobodies, essentially. You know what I mean? They were really nobodies. And then like here me and Sim come 10 years later. And throughout the 10 years, we're listening to some things they're saying. We're like, oh, I can't believe he said that. I can't believe he did this. And we're comparing to the old days. And we're like, wow, things are so different now. And in the meantime, we were aware of kind of what was going on, but we just were silent about it. We were like, I don't really want to get involved, And then it just got to a point where I think, at least for myself, we're like, hey, you know what? I actually do want to talk about it now. And me, in my background, I was actually on YouTube long before you got paid for it. And I actually had 500,000 subscribers and I shut down my channel. And this is before I was debating atheists. I was debating, at that time I was heavily involved in debating Shiites and things like that. And so we'd have I literally had 30-part series on discussions and things like that. And so for me to come onto a podcast was very natural to talk about these types of things. I've been doing it for a long time. The other thing is I want to quickly mention is that now, when we see these people that have this type of following, we're thinking like, wait a minute, we kind of know how the inner workings, I guess, because we know how they started off and what they're talking about, and we saw the progression. And I think we were able to then step back and be like, hey, well, we don't necessarily agree with everything. We kind of evolve a little bit and we say, you know what, you used to be there and now you're this way. So we've also changed.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I think Mort and Sim just brought up a good point because both of you guys, I highlighted at the beginning. I knew your siblings before I really knew you guys.
Yeah.
Right. Like Mort's brother is someone from the time of the Salaf who's been implanted in 21st century Chicago.
He was the first student of Bain, I think.
He was a valedictorian of the first Bain class.
Yeah.
He actually taught too.
Yeah. He's actually legally deaf, and he memorized. I don't know if you can send you this, but Nabil will show he memorized the Quran while on a commute.
Yeah. So basically, I don't want to take much time, but not because he's my brother, but he's an amazing person in so many ways because a person with his disabilities could have easily given up and said, you know what, Allah made me this way and I'm cool. I'm going to get to Jannah because I can't do much, But he took it to a next level, and basically I can speak for myself, but when I see him, I realize what a waste of time. I all the time that I waste basically because a man that's married and legally deaf didn't know only a single language except English because they had to teach that to him when he was growing up. But he memorized the Quran on the train ride. So what he would do is he would memorize pages on the way to work, and then so in his Dhuhr and Asr he would revise what he memorized, and then the way back he would memorize more, and then in Maghrib and Isha he would revise that, and then in his Qiyam he would revise all what he did, and he did that for 2 years. And he memorized it himself.
Yeah.
So that's the kind of individual that I have to compare myself to.
Yeah, so Mort's brother, I wasn't even living in Chicago yet. I was living in Ohio. I came from a Maghrib class. And Mort's brother was just driving me around.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was just the guy, and I used to show up to class on like a thob and a gutra, so he like naturally gravitated to me. I was like a hardcore Salafi back then, so like we just gelled. He like it was like a magnet. And then Sim's brother is also someone who was also very involved in the Maghrib. So I'm sure you guys having siblings who were kind of on the scene while y'all were stepping back you still had an idea what's going on, right?
Yeah.
We did, but we actually, the funny thing is this, we actually got, at some point, at least I can speak for myself, when I was pulling out, I kind of noticed some things. And so I would there was a little tension between me and my brother, like, hey, why are you still going to that place? You know, like, dude, I don't like that thing, you know, like, and so it was kind of like we always had that little discussion about, they're cool, but I don't like this part. And so it was kind of an interesting perspective, because I'm like, wait a minute, dude, we brought Al Maghrib to Chicago. Like, I remember being one of the guys in the room talking to Yasir Qadhi about, in Indiana, saying, hey, what are you going to provide Chicago if you come here? You know what I mean? And then it's like, now he's like on this big platform, and it's like, wait a minute, you know? So, I mean, I'm not here to knock on Al-Maghrib. All I'm saying is that we were still aware of what was going on because of our attachment to the organization by our siblings, and we just didn't get involved anymore because we had certain disagreements, and actually we just, that just kind of helped, you know, I mean, it just made us not active, I guess.
Yeah. So anyway, back to your question about what our approach was. And I think it was a multi-pronged approach, you know, reaching out to these, well-known people and bringing them on our platform, and, reaching out to their audiences. And then, I think also one of my main issues of contention with Muslim media was that, you know, it's boring. I mean, there's no reason why I just compared it to myself. I'm like, why would I want to listen to this program that someone's putting on? And I felt like, you know, most Islamic lectures and podcasts in general are all very monotonous, where one person is just talking and talking and talking, and I found that really boring. And I'm like, you know what, if we're going to put on a show, it's got to be dynamic, it's got to be engaging listeners, the listener has to be feeling like they're the fifth person in the room, you know, and they're probably, you know, yelling at us, or sometimes they're nodding in agreement, and that's part of what makes a good program, you know.
Yeah, I remember before I joined the team, I still listen to some shows, and I remember some of the guys in the community would be like, well, one of these guys is going to invite somebody else besides their buddies into their basement. Because I think that's what I didn't know that. So, like, I found out later that, like, for example, like Sheikh Omar Haqqani and Sim were like boys from back in the day. Like, I didn't know the guy, so I didn't know who they were connected to. But one of the guys was like, oh yeah, they're just inviting their buddies to their basement.
Yeah. No,
is that a true representation to start off with?
Subhan wasn't a buddy.
He was friends with Moga, right?
Yeah, but he didn't. I mean, we didn't know him at all.
Yeah,
I mean,
well, it's all like, you know.
Well, how else do you network
networking.
though, right? I mean, you're not going to just network. Why would anybody come on the show? They have no idea. I mean, you know what I mean? Especially
like if you want to invite well-known people, well, they got to have some kind of material that they need to compare to. They need to know what they're walking into in order to figure out, okay, well, this is a show that I think I would enjoy being on, and, you know, let's give them a chance. So having the first 10 episodes with, you know, not well-known people, it kind of gave us some kind of material that, you know, we could show to potential guests and say, hey, look, you know, we have some great episodes out there. Why don't you check it out? And I think
it also helped us develop our own personality on the show itself. You know what I mean? Because we were still getting started. It's not like we knew what we were going to do exactly right when we got in there. None of us are experienced podcasters or radio show hosts, or even as far as even recording media. We didn't know much of anything. I mean, it's all a learning curve for us.
There was a lot of practice involved, man. We would scrap shows that we spent a couple hours on left and right. We still do it. Like, no, you know, this didn't cut the mustard, and just didn't pass the quality that we want. You know, we didn't engage. No, listen, we don't want to be an academic platform either, but we need to be, you know, we want to be mature and able to present the material in a responsible way where people can't run off with certain ideas and make, you know, conclusions based on those ideas.
Yeah, I remember one time in the beginning, I think we had Moga record the introduction like for 20 minutes straight. Like it just didn't come out right. And we're like, yo, you got to re-record this. And for 20 minutes, it went on that we just wanted to record the introduction. And that was part of the learning process.
Yeah, Mahin did too.
Yeah.
Mahin went through the same rigorous, because it all sounds really easy. I think a lot of the listeners have this misconception where that, just talking into a microphone and just spewing your thoughts should be really easy, but it's not. I mean, it may come very natural to some people. I know Mort is very inclined, and he's had a lot of practice through his YouTube platform doing that kind of stuff, but majority of people do not have this kind of experience.
True. I mean, I'm going to be honest, just referring back to what Sim said about the kind of content we throw out, and this might offend some people, but look, dude, I look at Muslim media a lot in general as like, Zabiha versus non-Zabiha. A non-Zabiha burger is always better than a Zabiha burger for some reason, right? And it's just the reality. We have that thing here, and it's kind of like, look, why is it better? And it's because, look, let's be honest, dude. For some reason, they know what they're doing and they do it right and they put quality into the work, and that's why it ends up being better. And so I think one of the things that me and Sim talked about was, hey, whatever we put out here, we want to make sure it's high quality and it's great content, because we all watch movies, we all listen to certain things, and when we do, we make sure it's high content. I'll never watch a copy of a movie that's like a handheld camera version, right? Why would I watch that? I'm going to wait for an HD quality movie to come out. And the same thing with the content that you put out. You're only going to get people are only gonna, gravitate towards you if you're putting out quality material. If you don't give enough attention to your own details, then why would anybody else pay attention to your detail? And that's how I looked at it. So we're trying to be like this new Zabiha standard, like wiping out the old no fat burger. We're trying to wipe it out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's an important distinction, especially when you're creating content for a Muslim audience, because the Muslim community in general has a reputation for low quality, or shoddily planned, shoddily put together projects. Then you have this.
Think about YouTube, Nabil. Think about YouTube. Who do you think, right off the top of your head, which Muslim platform has a really high quality production? I would argue only Bayina does. I think
I was going to say Bayina.
Because the Bayina has a multi-million-dollar production house.
Yeah, I was going to say Bayina, or like those people that make those, what is that, Mercy, whatever they have. Like
Celebrate Mercy?
Whatever.
No. Oh, Merciful Servant.
Merciful Servant, yeah.
Yeah, but that's just all composed graphics. People can do that from from a regular computer.
But I'm telling you something, they can do it. But compared to what I've been used to seeing on YouTube, that was such a leap. You see what I mean?
I'll give them. I'm not.
Just like a high quality image in the background was and that's how sad we are. That a high quality image in the background was enough to get my attention as something high quality in the Muslim community.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Right.
It's quite pathetic.
Dawah Man was my favorite.
Dawah Man, yeah.
Are you serious?
No, we're kidding.
Oh, I was gonna say, I was gonna walk over the table right now and just smack you, dude. Oh man, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I sort of look at quality from a different angle. I think it's less to do with the production quality and rather about the quality of the content that you're putting out. So,
okay, here's the thing, Nabil. If we as Muslims, especially from people who have been from colonized countries, we always look up to the white man for everything. And we compare everything that we have in our community to what they have, and we see them doing it better. And we're like, okay, well, they're just doing it better, and I like that just because it has so much better presentation. I remember when Al Maghrib had these high quality flyers coming out. Man, that attracted people's attention just because of its high quality flyers. It didn't matter about what they were speaking about, who was coming to speak. It was just these beautiful glossy papers that were coming into our community with professional graphic artists who.
It was a dumb topic like Thick of Love, and be like, oh, I'm gonna go. It's such a great flyer. I'm gonna go.
Yeah, and other people started emulating that model in the Chicago community, and they started building large followings and large organizations just based on presentation alone.
But I think I know where Nabil is coming from too, in a sense that, and I think we share that too.
Look, in the end, yes.
Yeah, it has to be the actual content has to be something worthy of actually putting out there.
Absolutely.
And I think that at the end of the day, I think what Nabil was trying to say is if that's good, people can overlook some of the other flaws, but it takes a much longer time to get attention because unfortunately today in the age of social media and all that stuff, that people gravitate towards stuff that is high quality.
Yeah, especially when you're just, you're going to give a video 15 seconds of attention, and if you see a lot of graininess and a lot of low quality production where you're having to turn up the volume and when you can't see the person's face really well, it's not well lit, that people will they'll tune out. You might get an initial few hits, but you're not going to get the subscribers that you want, at least on YouTube.
Yeah, I think those are excellent points actually, because branding is I guess it's a given. People judge you from the way you look and the way you present yourself. So quality is an important aspect of content creation. But what I'm thinking is, from my perspective, let's say for example you had those amazing Al Maghrib flyers come into your community, and then you go to the weekend seminar and it's just garbage, and the guy doesn't know how to teach. His presentation slides are shitty, and then he's some scrub from I guess he's just done a Islamic studies bachelor's, and that's the teacher. You wouldn't go back, right? The high quality graphics and stuff, it's enough to get your attention, but then when you go there, the quality is in the actual quality of the content, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. I mean, at the end of the day, people are going to look at the message that you're actually presenting. And if it's not quality, then they're going to end up just saying, oh, well, they're going to call it what they call a clickbait, meaning that it looks shiny and great on the outside, but when I got into it, it's a scam, right? And so you don't want to end up being, that pyramid scam where, hey, people are actually paying to listen to you and it's really garbage. I don't want to end up what's his name? Deepak Chopra and those people.
Well, one of our tools was to have a high quality audience as well. People who aren't nutty, essentially. At least we know in our Muslim community we have people who are like the haram police, and they say their whole job is to refute people. And I think unintentionally, our intro music was a way to filter these people out. Oh, they have music in their intro, I'm not going to listen. I'm okay, we don't want you to listen. We don't want that kind of that kind of listener base as well. So I think it's important for a lot of content creators to be choosy with their audience. Now, I mean, you can't be so selective that you're going to have a very small segment of your of the audience as well. But what you want is high quality listeners and people who will actually contribute to discussion, and they'll fill in the gaps that you missed in your episodes,
And even the concept of the music. Why don't you tell them about how you and Sheikh Amr disagreed upon even how
yeah. Sheikh Amr didn't want anything. He said we should just start off with just talking, and I'm like, no, man, we can't have that. We want to present ourselves in a way that we're not liberal, but we're not super conservative either. We want to show them that there's a balance, and the way we kind of hashed it out was like, okay, well, let me avoid the guitars and the stuff, some of the instruments that were specifically mentioned in some of the Hadith, and I know the other points of argument on that as well. So we're just trying to strike some sort of compromise right now. So I said, let's just stick to electronic music, and I kind of convinced Sheikh Amr to accept that as a presentable way of bringing music on the show.
Yeah, that's an excellent point, because you want to differentiate yourself from the mass of Muslim content that's out there. And in doing so, you're being very, very selective about your audience, because to tell you, if you're being honest, the Mad Mamluks is not for everybody, because there are people who just can't handle the way you guys talk about things and present yourself, and they're generally not going to be interested in listening to you. And I mean, we're going to talk about the haters later on. I mean, there's like two kinds of haters. There's like the hater that like, okay, I can't stand these guys. I'm just not going to listen to them. And there's the other kind of haters who I like to call like unpaid marketing interns. And they hate you so much that they'll keep listening to you and then criticizing you and then giving you more airtime through that.
I love those kinds.
Yeah. I think sometimes those kind of people can be, they can be an obstruction to content creators where they're just spending too much time worrying about them and responding to them and trying to change their language so that they don't offend them. But I think what we've done on our show is that we've given we're trying to respond to people, and I think most of our audience is really educated, and they don't come out with one word statement saying you're this and that. But a lot of our feedback is nuanced, and it comes from educated people, so we're happy in that sense.
We all share an email account, and we all have it on our phone, and we just recently got an email, and I'm no kidding, guys, it was like 4 paragraphs long, and it was like comments, and I'm not going to go into the detail because I don't want to just whatever bore you with that. But I mean, these are people who actually dedicate like 10-15 minutes out of their day to actually write up a formal comment and response, and they email us. And so those kinds of people I don't mind so much. But you know what, Nabil, I kind of follow the idea of Roger Stone. I don't know if you know who he is, but he's like the professional agent provocateur, where he believes that any publicity is good publicity, even if it's bad publicity. And I tend to follow that argument. As long as you're not doing it just to be an a-hole and you actually genuinely believe it, I don't care what the haters are going to say. Hey, if you're bringing me attention, great, dude. Bring it on. So
let's talk about the growth of the podcast from like the early days where you're just starting out versus where you are now. Maybe Sim can comment about the first few episodes, and then Mahin and Mort can talk about later on because they came on the show a little bit later.
Well, in terms of audience base, in the beginning we had a very small audience. There was maybe 100 or so, and then I think it just kind of kept growing. 100, 200, 300, and before you know it, you're hitting like thousands of downloads within hours now. So, alhamdulillah for that. But I think the way we've evolved as content creators, each one of us, I think everyone's been just sharpening their tools of trade. Everyone's picking up new vocab, thinking of better ways to express themselves, paying more attention to how they communicate with each other. Usually when you're hanging out with friends, it's a very lazy form of communication. So you're not really cognizant of how you're coming across to people. You're not paying attention to, well, you might be a little bit, but you really don't care whether the person has really understood your point or not. So I think these type of things really have we've started paying a lot more attention to those type of things, and it helped us become better. And I think a lot of people have commented in that sense as well, that they said you guys are much more articulate now than when you were from your earlier episodes. So.
Yeah, I mean, from my perspective, I'll be honest. I really didn't care about how fast we grew. It was this was more of a project for us, in a sense. At least the way I looked at it was, we have these ideas. We didn't feel like we had a platform that represented us, and so we decided to create our own platform. And so, regardless of who really agrees or not, it's more of a way for us to channel our thoughts to the Muslim community as a whole. And I think we had the confidence that as long as we did that in an honest way and a transparent way, that the numbers would grow. Because I feel like that we're probably one of the most honest podcasts out there in terms of our openness and our transparency with our guests, our views and things like that. I do remember that there was a, here's a little inside information to the show. There were some discussions about, what type of guest we should go after, and should it impact the numbers and things like that. And I think we came to a point where sometimes we even got rejected by some people that we didn't, we were really trying to get on the show. We really wanted them to be there. And we had a moment, I guess it's one of those Bruce Lee moments where after we got that guest on the show, that show didn't do nearly as good as no-name people that we had on the show.
Yeah.
And at that moment, we all realized, we're like, you know what? We're chasing the wrong thing. People like our content for the way we present it. So we could potentially bring anybody that's interesting on the show and put out great content. And that's what we should focus on, rather than just trying to see what guest is going to bring us in numbers. Because we're going to grow no matter what. As long as we're putting out quality, like Sim said, we're going to grow. And it might take a little longer, but it'll be organic and it'll continue to grow. That's how I look at it.
Yep.
And Mahin, what's your experience been with the audience group? I noticed that in terms of being more active on social media, you're a bit more active than Mort or Sim. Even Sim is like a close second.
I mean, so I think it's important for folks to understand kind of like how I landed in this role. So I'll this is kind of back to the original whole creation thing. Like Mort and Sim like grew up together. So Sim's wife was in my Arabic class. And she shows up and she says like, oh, my husband and Sheikh Amr Saeed started this podcast called Mad Mamluks. And I've been listening to the podcast for like 10 years. So I eventually subscribed. I listened to like Kamran, Riaz, and then Shirazi, and I liked them. And even the early episodes, I really enjoyed them. So, but I remember at class one time I told her like, you guys aren't putting out content fast enough. There wasn't like a weekly, maybe like once every 2 to 3 weeks, maybe, would you say? In the beginning?
Yeah, well, I think there was a lag in the beginning. There was a period where we were having some difficulty bringing some guests on, so.
Sure. And so like I ended up, and she actually would ask me in class, like, do you know anybody? And I would give her some random names in Chicago that I knew. I didn't know the intent of it. So I actually, I was I remember I just got back from Bangladesh, and then I got invited to a friend's place for lunch during a Maghrib class, and I think it was Sheikh Abdul Nasser Jangda was in town. And I think Sim happened to be there. I guess your brother was supposed to be there too.
Yeah.
He had the bail for something. But I guess you were there to try to make a pitch.
Yeah, I was trying to get Sheikh Abdul Nasser Jangda on the show. And I saw Mahin there, and I'm like, you know what? Oh, by the way, backstory is that Moga, who was our anchor, who would open up with the intro and everything, he started looking for a job, or he was getting a job. Something happened where he got really busy in that process. So I'm like, okay, well, I gotta get an anchor now, and I gotta find somebody, or else this thing is gonna just crash and burn. And I was at our mutual friend's house where Jangda's over there, Sheikh Jangda's over there, and I met Mahin over there. I'm like, holy cow, this guy has a great, radio voice, and I can. He might be my answer to this. And he ends up just talking about podcasts and how much he loves many different podcasts, and we bounced a whole lot of ideas off of each other. And before you knew it, that same day, I told him, hey, come over, meet the guys. We were barbecuing that day, and he came over, and we started talking, and he met the guys, and he was just as nutty as the rest of them. So he fit in just fine. And I'm like, okay, well.
Yeah, I think me and Mahin hit it off pretty well. After I realized who he was, I didn't even know who he was. I honestly forgot your name after that day. It was like years ago, right, that we met.
It was like 2009 Eid or something, like back in the day.
And I had gone to Egypt since then, and gone to like Dubai, and I was living there, and all over. And then when we touched base, it was like, oh yeah, I remember you, dude, my cousin, right? And then we just hit it off at that time.
Yeah, it was funny because when I first met Mahin, it was, I think, at my brother's wedding, and I made that same comment. I'm like, hey, you have a great radio voice.
I think you should be like.
And what year was that?
2009.
Yeah,
in March.
2009.
Hey, look, I'm not gonna lie.
That is like karamat from Allah, dude. Like that was one of my first words I said to him. Like, hey, dude, you got a great voice. And like years later, you're on the show working with me.
So,
yeah,
crazy. I'm not gonna lie here. So, I think after, you had met my cousin, I think, I may have added me on Facebook or something like that, and I think I had you on there. I didn't know. But then I forgot about it. And then I met you at Sim's house at that barbecue. And I'm thinking, I'm like, wait, this is the guy I had on my Facebook. And then I remember thinking, like, I think at that time you had pictures of like you in Bangladesh, and I had like you were getting some awards, and
Right.
so I thought this guy was the freshie. I'm like, oh man, this is the freshie guy, dude. You know what I mean? I'm thinking like, oh my god. And I think you were more conservative in your dressing at that time. So
Yeah.
you were probably like a college
I was
Republican.
still trying to get I was still trying to get married back then.
So he would be wearing like khakis and like a collared shirt and a tie. Like he was straight up preppy. And I'm like, oh. And I'm like, I look at him at Sim's house. I'm like, whoa, that's why I didn't recognize him, bro. Here's this fresh guy with kicks on and a fitted and like, he's fresh to death, right? And I'm like, yo, who's this guy, dude? You know? And then I put two and two together. I'm like, oh, you know, this is Mahin. And then, but I remember thinking in my head, I'm like, this kid, you know, maybe he's all right. Maybe he's at his hip, you know? But then he just totally blew my mind at Sim's house. And I'll be honest, dude, I think, and I can speak for Sim when I say this, dude, had it not been for Mahin, I don't think we'd get anywhere near the amount of guests that we gotten.
Yeah, the dude
he's the
has
powerhouse behind it all.
Yeah, the dude has a lot of connections.
He's connected. I mean,
and that wasn't even on my mind when I was bringing him on. That was like something we just thought of later. Like, holy cow, you do know a lot of people. And my thinking was just, I need to get an anchor. I need somebody who can really open up the show with a bang, and you know, that they'll be able to introduce the guest, and they'll be able to rattle off all their credentials really fast. And
I think the test of that was when he did that Madkhali opening, and that was just like the killer. Like that was like, oh, we got ourselves a host. You know what I mean? Because
yeah, we did. Well, give some pretext to that.
Oh yeah, so I'll let Mahin do it. Maybe even give a snippet of what you did.
No.
Yeah, so you remember, like, it was around that time when I think we referenced it, I think Dawa Man was like hating on Yasir Qadhi and a bunch of other like shayuk and whatnot, and giving refutations. So we kind of did a parody of that, me and Mort. Cause were you a Madkhali at one point, Mort?
Never.
He's a troll Madkhalis. I was a full on Madkhali.
We were on the other opposite side of selfism.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna get into that because that's
If I get you in trouble.
The Fifth Amendment.
Yeah. But I was definitely on the pro Saudi, pro government, like Madkhalism for a good 2 years. So Ikhwan, the brothers here, they wish to support the people of innovation, and these Mad Mamluks, we have to ask the Mashayikh about them, etc. Yani, so that was kind of like, we did this little intro at the beginning of one of these shows. And Mort and I did this parody where I think you asked me a question as an audience member. Like, yeah, Sheikh, could you tell me about, you had some Egyptian accent going.
Yeah, these are the people from America, the Mad Mamluks, and they are upon the bid'ah. What is your opinion, Sheikh? And then I think we went
I was like, Naam, ya akhi. Yeah, I advise the brothers Ikhwan that first of all, these individuals, we have looked into the affair, and we see that they associate with the people of innovation, the people of bid'ah. Naam. So, I kind of went into that a little bit. And so, we should listen. A lot of people listen to that. We showed Joe Bradford that, and he was dying. Those Medina guys all they ate it up.
I loved it because they know where we're coming from. You know? Yeah, but I mean, so at that moment, I realized that Maheen was a host that we could vibe with, because he could joke on that level, and then he could be serious, and then he had a great voice and connections. And I think Sim instantly realized that he was a match made in heaven for us.
Yeah, this is like one of those VH1s behind the scenes 20 years later. We're like a year and a half into this, and
yeah,
going down memory lane. I don't know if you've ever seen those VH1 episodes.
That's haram, akhi.
What were those shows called? You remember those? Behind the scenes or something?
Yeah, they had weird names for them. Like, yeah, they're like behind the scenes.
They would like go down memory lane and talk about the early years, and it was
yeah. I know what you're talking about, but I forgot the name of the show.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it goes back to the point I mentioned earlier about you guys, each of you guys bringing something very unique to the table, and that combined together, it adds up to something that's greater than the sum of its parts. You mentioned that the majority of the growth of your podcast has been from having or leveraging the audiences of certain guests that you've had. Have you found that having a certain caliber of high celebrity guest affects the way that you create the content or Does it?
So I'm a multifaceted person, Nabil. I like entertainment, and I feel like that has its place, but I feel like, it's not just enough to be entertainment and being entertaining in this society. I think we as Muslims have obligations as well, and we have an obligation to further or improve the pathetic situation of Muslims as well. So it's not just because these superstars, like Jonathan Brown and Joe Bradford and them, they end up coming on our show. We don't bring them on just because they have a great social media following. They actually help people become intelligent human beings, and we want people to grow and be more mature in their thought. And so these are things that we've really given a lot of thought to. Like, yeah, it's great, you're being entertaining, but are you actually a benefit to your community as well? So there's a lot of layers that are happening here. It's not just about entertainment. We want to be, this is one of the reasons why we don't take money for this podcast. We don't, none of us make money off of it, because we don't want it to be about the money. We want it to be about furthering the Muslim cause. We want Muslims to become stronger in their thought, their ideas. We want them to become bulletproof in a modern age, in this modern age where atheism is spreading like a wildfire,
Yeah, so Nabil, that's one thing that Sim just mentioned that I think we forgot to talk about. That was one of the motivating factors for us actually even doing a podcast as well, was that there is a rise of atheism and complete secular ideas among the communities that we live in. And I think Sim, being the father of four children, always wrestled with the idea that my kids are going to be growing up in this society that where there are going to be tough questions, and how do we produce a generation that is adequately equipped with responses and the ability to respond to very tough questions that we generally didn't have to answer growing up, because we didn't have to deal with the events of 9/11 and 7/7, and there wasn't that much scrutiny on Islam at all. People didn't even know what Muslims were at all. And nowadays, you have hillbillies from the middle of America saying Arabic words, and that is something that was never around before. And so right now, it is unprecedented as far as the Americans in Muslims in America that we're being forced with to deal with questions and opinions that we never really had to interact with before or deal with before. And I think that was one of the main reasons why we wanted to present arguments and responses and bring on guests that could help us present a legitimate opposition and a viewpoint that is in line with Islam, and yet still being able to relate to these different individuals that we're dealing with on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah. Well, real quick, Sim mentioned the concept of money. We will take donations though.
Yeah.
I know that because it does. I think we're not making money. We're not getting paid. We're not rolling around in Benzes and Beamers because of the Mad Mamluks.
Yeah.
Or we are still. It still costs money to fund this operation. So if you want to donate, you can go to our website, and I'm sure that'll be in the show notes. But I just wanted. I think when people get the wrong idea, we're IT and we're engineering, we're not millionaires, and we're kind of. It's mainly Sim, really. I think your kids probably aren't going to college.
No. I told them already they have to pay for their own college.
Because he spent all the money on Mad Mamluks.
Yep.
So we're sacrificing Sim's kids' educations for your benefit, ladies and gentlemen, so you must pay up now.
Yeah, and I want to talk about sustainability and scaling your project in a little while. But what I wanted to actually touch on right now is, when you guys are trying to make connections with these speakers who have a prominent position in the community, maybe they have large social followings, maybe they're very respectable, maybe they're academics or whatever, does that affect the way that you position yourself or present yourself or the way you speak on your show? Because then you don't want to, I guess you burn bridges in a way or things like that. Or put it in another way, have you had speakers say that they don't want to come on your show because you guys are too ratchet?
No one actually gives you that kind of rejection. They just won't even respond. I think people who are interested end up just responding with their interest of wanting to engage with you. But most people, if they don't want that platform, they don't want to be on this type of platform. I completely respect that. I think that our platform is not for everyone. We once had a guest. Me and Mahin did a show solo with some sister, and she stormed off the show. And me and him laughed about it later because I felt like Mahin had some relevant questions. And
wait, I didn't know about this.
Yeah, you guys don't know about this.
I would have clowned.
It's a very controversial episode. So, but
we'll sell it for $100, $100 per download.
Yeah,
in Mad Mamluks Uncensored Anniversary Edition.
Yeah, it'll be released on the 28th anniversary.
I think as far as like preparing for guests, I mean, yeah, absolutely. I mean, just speaking about just the background here, Sim and Mahin will send out notes to us and say, hey, this is the guest that we're bringing on the show if I'm going to be hosting. And I will try to educate myself on their position and maybe some of the opposite positions to see where I stand on it if I'm not familiar with it. And I will try to make myself aware. I don't think I necessarily change my opinion based on who's coming on the show?
I think it's tough. I think we do. When being completely objective about it, when I go back and listen to some of our older episodes, I feel like, we could have been more tougher with certain guests. And it's always, the thing is, when you have people sitting in front of you, you always want to get along with them, right? You don't want to be an agitator, and it's not necessarily their status in the community that's really coming into play. It's that bond, that Muslim bond that you have with your brother across from you. Well, that's kind of our philosophy,
though, right? We're not trying to alienate anybody, essentially. I mean, the whole idea was that everybody could have a platform. Like, for example, what other podcast is giving a person as controversial as Nabil a platform, right? When we talk to him, a lot of people probably didn't do that before because of they're very opinionated. So I do think that is just an extension of us trying to be inclusive of everybody.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily, I don't think that not being tough doesn't mean that we didn't still state our opinion. I still believe that in many ways we have stated our opinion. Maybe people would want us to be tougher, but then again, we don't want to alienate and push people away so they don't come back on and we don't get any type of voice anymore now. Right? And we don't want radio silence. We want to actually engage the community. That's the whole idea behind it.
Sure. And the one thing I'll say is that sometimes these like celebrities, like let's say that we've had on like Imam Suhaib Web, Yasir Qadhi, Dalia Mujahid, they come on very tight time schedules. So we don't even have, you have maybe 45 minutes to record.
Right.
And you don't have the time to really really shoot the breeze and like have the long form podcast that's really our bread and butter.
And they're really guarded to begin with. I mean, I saw the terror in some people's eyes when we asked certain questions, and they're like, you can just tell when their eyes their pupils dilate or they're widen up, and you can tell like they're wondering in their head like, did he really ask me that?
No, I mean, keep in mind, guys, that sometimes some of these podcasts that we record, like some of these scholars are on such a tight schedule that we'll be recording sometimes at 2 a.m. in the morning in a hotel room, right? Because we just don't have any other time to get them. And there'll be times where they'll come on and say, listen, I don't want to talk about these subjects, and we just have to respect that. And if we want them on the show, and so we just agree because we just want to be able to engage them and perhaps maybe bring them back at a different time, maybe. But we still have to respect the boundaries that people put before us, right? We're not going to be a-holes and just for controversy. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think that's a very important point when we're trying to speak to people in an interview format, especially with you guys' platform where you're trying to, your manhaj is that you want to give everybody space to come and state their opinion. Now, if you have a guest and then you're very combative with that guest when you're speaking to them, other people might be discouraged to come and speak to you, for example. So I think there's a balance there. For example, people like, when you have the sister from the Love Buzz episode where you had your wives on, and there, if you guys were combative about her, putting, sodomites in the book and things like that, and Maheen basically having to make ghusl after reading that dude's story, if you're combative with those types of guests, then they're not going to want to come on your show, right? Because like word will get around and it'll be like one of those gotcha type of interviews.
Yeah. I mean, look, especially, I'm not going to paint everyone on the left this way, but they're very emotional people.
I was just going to say that. I'm like, look, the reality that we have a leftist Muslim community and they get offended by everything, dude. Like anything. I could sneeze the wrong way and they'll cry about it, play a hashtag about it, dude. So, I'm with Sim here on this. I try to actually tone myself down so I can be more inclusive. And I do a very bad job at it. But even this is me toning down, right? I mean, and so. For
the record, I'm anti-right as well. I'm anti-right and anti-left. I feel like all these things that Muslims are getting involved in is a bunch of wasted time. I feel like Islam has everything that you really need. You don't need to align yourself with Democrats or Republicans, left or right, capitalism or communism. I feel like Islam already has all those things covered, and it's just navigating these waters and learning the tradition better and applying that reality, the current reality to the tradition. And that's where the work really needs to be done.
So if we're clarifying certain things, I think I can be credited with coining the term alt bro. I really could be. And I just want to define that for a second. When I say alt bro, people think I'm talking about the alt right. And although I may agree with some things on the alt right, I am not an alt right individual. I'm not on the left or the right. My whole idea of saying alt bro means that we're outside of the boundaries of being left or right. What we are is we're Muslims, right? We're in a sense that I don't have to be a leftist Muslim or a right Muslim, right? What I have to be is the alternative to both of them, meaning because Islam is the alternative to all of them, right? Meaning that we have our own principles, our own ideologies, and we look at issues based on ideas that are rooted within Islam, right? We don't say, okay, you know what? I want to align with the left on this because they're my friends, so I'm going to do this, or I'm going to align with the right because I hate the left so much and I'm going to agree with them on everything because of that. And so my idea is that, look, you have a brain, Allah gave you a mind, Allah gave you a guidance, use that to, formulate your opinions. And that is why I coined the term alt bro, because I'm not going to fit in the mold of being a leftist or a right person. I'm going to be my own individual that's rooted within Islam and use that as my basis.
Yeah, it's like you're anti-right, anti-left, pro-Islam.
Absolutely.
And that's not to say there's truths in either side. There's definitely, there's definitely truths that you can find within the right and the left, but that doesn't mean that I have to subscribe to either one of those entirely. I don't have to become part of that team.
Nabil, I think the best way to put it is I'm unapologetically a Muslim. When I say alt bro, I'm unapologetically a Muslim, and I don't care whether the right or the left like it or not. It doesn't bother me. I'm just rooted in Islam. So I'm alternative to all of that.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I think you have to be a little bit careful when you say unapologetically, because a lot of liberal Muslims and liberal minority groups have they have this as part of their identity politics. I'll be unapologetically hijabi, and they're basically like a feminist with a piece of cloth on her head, so that sort of thing is like we gotta.
Nabil, did you see that video of that hijabi girl was dancing, and she wanted to, it's a new video that came out, like she's saying how dancing is expressing herself, and she's like, yeah, I'm fat, I'm hijabi, and I'm black, does that bother you? And she's sitting there dancing in the street. Did you see that video, that recent one?
Yeah, I caught like a minute or two of it. I think I don't want to diss the sister because maybe she's Muslim, like an actual Muslim, so that she's got rights over us, But yeah, I mean, like, come on, like, okay, you're a hijabi, you're black, you're a little bit overweight, but okay, just be a normal person. Why you gotta make like a video about it, you know?
True. I mean, I don't come out saying, hey, I'm hetero and I'm bearded and I'm in the streets and I'm brown, you know? I don't make videos like that. You know, I don't feel like I have to justify myself to anybody. You know, I think this is where I think we have a problem with, I mean, I don't want to go off on a tangent, but the idea that we should just be Muslim. That's the alt bro, meaning I'm just a Muslim. I don't care what anybody else thinks. I have my views because I'm a Muslim, and the right can fly a kite and the left can fly a kite. It doesn't bother me.
Yeah, I want to sort of get Maheen's and Sim's ideas about that, because you know Mort is very open about his views.
Yeah,
and then like in Maheen as well, to a certain extent, he's like alt bro first officer, but then Sim, you're a little bit more guarded with your views, right?
Yeah. Well, look, my thing has always been finding the middle path. I don't want to be extreme in anything. I think some of the classical ulamas have always said, you know, what was it? Between the wings
We're
of
talking
fear.
about the bird, where like the body of the bird is love and the wings are hope and fear. So
Right.
If either one of them are more extreme, then it won't fly straight.
Right. So that's basically my philosophy on how to approach the religion. I found myself, when I was super religious, I ended up crashing hard. When I was in the other direction, I found myself down another path. So I'm a mixed bag of goods. And so if people find out some skeletons that are in my closet, I don't have to be really worried about it, because I've never made that claim that I'm some kind of savior. I end up bringing people who are much better than me on the show to pass that knowledge to me. But whatever I've learned from my life, I'm definitely gonna share that, and hope that my kids and every one of our kids can benefit something from it.
So as far as my take on the alt bro, I think it sounds cool. I don't know that Mort was I kind of disagree that Mort was the first one to coin it, because I first heard it from Abdul Malik Ryan, Abu Noor. He's been on our show a couple times. He talks
really?
about it.
I had no idea.
No, but Mort really just embraced it.
Yeah, he really embraced it.
After you called attention to it, Mort just started like, okay, that's what we are. This is the perfect marketing scheme to run, get behind.
Right, and I know Iman Wire podcast did an alt bro segment, but then I talked to the brother who runs Iman Wire, and he's like, the way you guys... Because he was like, oh, alt bro is really a thing. So my issue with the term alt bros, the people who use it in a derogatory manner can't even define it properly, and they don't know who their ideologues are. Because every movement should have, it's an ideology, right? And I know your last podcast with Ali Akbar, which was like awesome, by the way. Mad props to that. But I like how he distinguished between a political movement versus an ideology. And our alt bro is like an ideology, but it's still like loose. But the people who want to like use it in a derogatory manner can't even define it properly. And they can't define an ideology has ideologues. So to be honest, the only I put somebody on the spot once, like, yo, name me one. I would ask people like straight up, like, is this guy an alt bro? It's like, no. And then finally, like, who? And then if I push comes to shove, they'll say Nabil Aziz is an alt bro. I'm like, okay, so why? So he's one dude in Dubai. Like, why are you so hung up? Like, you know what I mean? Like, why are you losing sleep about it? Like, why is your, like, they're totally ignorant of the fact that the left has dominated Muslim discourse, and they're focused on a dude in Dubai. That's what really ticks me off. And like, we deal with a lot of people in the Muslim community in America. I was with one of like a well-respected sheikh, one of the, I guess he's in the celebrity crowd here in America once, pitching him on the podcast. He eventually came on, and we're just like having coffee, and then she's looking through the Mad Mamluks like list. This is like back in like November, December-ish, and he's like, "Hey, who's Nabil Aziz?" And I kind of like give him a little bio.
I think he knew who he was.
You know you were. He's like, you know what? I don't like him. But then he was still like, I don't like him. He's a misogynist. He's a racist. He's into clickbait. But then in the same conversation, he was like, I mentioned that we reached out to somebody else on the feminist side who's like, someone in Chicago specifically, and he was like, you know what? She's okay. I don't have a problem with her. And I was like, dude, that's whack. Like, Nabil, and I actually told this to Sheikh Hamza Maqbool. And Sheikh Hamza was like, listen, man, the thing about Nabil is this. Nabil, if you tell him something's kufr, he's going to be like, astaghfirullah, I'll definitely like lay away from that, right? You tell this other feminazi chick that like something's kufr, she'll like have some justification about how you're mansplaining the deen. Or, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, but back to the whole point. So my personal ideology, and Sims alluded to this kind of on our own show, I've always leaned right. Ever since I kind of understood politics, part of it because I used to be in a pyramid scheme. Like I used to be in Amway. It's not really pyramid. People say it's a legal pyramid scheme, but Amway is very Republican. So in my formative years, when I was like 19, 20 years old, I was like, I kind of embraced like conservatism, right? I worked for Bush Cheney 04.
Oh boy.
And then, I was a hardcore social conservative. Then I became more libertarian. And then when I went through my Mudcully phase, I became apathetic towards American politics. But a Mudcully is still like, if you think about how their approach to the government, it's still conservative in that sense. You want to maintain it. You ain't trying to revolt against nothing. You're like trying to maintain like the stranglehold, right? So yeah, I think that's just my right. It just my demeanor. I think has always been like that. And what really drives me nuts is when people get like feel like they get brainwashed and they just parrot views. And that's kind of why I'm kind of the way I am in the sense that I lean right, but a lot of it is because it's the reaction that you see how people like the Muslims' love affair with Obama. Personally, I think Obama's a great dude, but like at the end of the day, like the way they worshipped him was just, and like he's a dude in the system, and he had to like go by the system and do things that probably he may not even have agreed with. But at the end of the day, like people, especially the love affair with him at the end of his presidency after Trump was elected, was nauseating, to say the least, right? And the fact when people say Trump's a racist and this and that, I'm like, listen, he's a narcissist, I think, but because if you give him props, he's gonna like never gonna speak bad about you. Like, if Trump ever listened to Mad Mamluks, he would be retweeting us all the time, I bet. You know what I mean? But, at least Mort, for sure. But, I think...
Yeah, but I've criticized him too, though, so I don't want people to think that I haven't. We had a whole podcast of me dumping on Trump, dude.
It's called Dump the Trump.
Yeah.
Back when we thought he was gonna... At least Sheikh Amr called it, though.
Yeah.
Sheikh Amr called it he's gonna get elected, like, a year ago. But, like, so that's kind of my take on the whole... The alt bro, my take on it is... The detractors, it's a made-up straw man that they've used kind of because it's a loose ideology that they try to define, and they can't really even define it. And it's probably, I think it's hypocritical in a sense because they're still like, people talk about they're not down with the left. Like a lot of my friends are like that, but then they won't even like when I tell them listen to Nabil's podcast, they're like,
well, the left has this inherent need to label things, right? Because they need to figure out, like, okay, they're not part of our team, so this is the label, this is the sticker that we're going to put on their forehead.
Well, they do it with their own team anyways. You're in the black crowd, you're in the Hispanic crowd, you're in the Muslim crowd, and they like to put them in containers. But just here's one thing. I think Maheen's bringing a good point, and I will agree with. The alt-bro doesn't really have a definition. I'm defining it because of the reason why I embraced it, right? But in all reality, it's just, in my opinion, it's just to say, look, we're outside the box of whether it's extremely right or extremely left. Meaning that, you know what, there are certain things that the left does that we don't agree with right now, dude. And I don't, it's kind of like a breaking of the mold. We don't have to fit any way or with any group. We just have to make sure that our views are in line with, mainstream Islam. That is in the middle path, right? And I think that's the most important thing. I mean, look, I'm not going to call any names here, but, me and Mahin and Sim were, at least I was part of some group, right? And there are people that will agree with you, to a certain degree.
I think Nabil was in this group too.
Yeah. So, he was, yeah. So they booed me because apparently I'm not entertaining enough. I don't know, because they have these stupid rants about dumb things.
You weren't active enough.
Yeah, whatever, dude. I mean, I don't have time to write down tweets at, every hour of the day. But anyways, point being is that there were some people that in that group that agreed with you on something, but they just, I feel like they're too cowardly to come out and say it. And I think it's because they fear public opinion. And I think that's a shame. You know, I mean, I think that in
I
reality,
I wouldn't characterize it as cowardly. I think there is a lot of justification behind it because of how poisonous and venomous that the left has made the discussion. You know,
but that's more of a reason to say I'm not gonna just lay over for that.
I mean, you can say that, but it's very easy to say that until they start going after your job.
I'm saying
the left will go after your
dude,
place of employment. They'll start, calling your HR department. That's called heat.
Look, what I'm saying though is that you don't have to be blatant and abrasive, but you can still make your opinions known being tactful. There are many people that have to deal with that every day, dude. I mean, look, am I worried about somebody calling my place of employment and telling what I said on a podcast, dude? I'm not worried about it, dude, because I don't say anything that's out there and actually like incriminating, right? I don't. It's a view and it's opinion, right? And so people can have these opinions.
Well, the thing is that people also want to be liked as well. They have this thing.
This is what I'm saying, though. Yeah. This is my point I'm trying to make to you.
By being neutral, by riding the fence, they feel like, oh, well, I'm not going to piss off anyone and I'm just going to be liked by everyone.
But what I'm saying is, if that's the case, then don't agree in private. Don't like hype it up and then not when it comes time push to shove, be silent about it, right? And then complain about it later on in private groups. If you really feel it's that much of an issue, and this is one of the reasons why I respect Nabil. I may not agree with everything, Nabil, that you say, but I respect your courage to come out and say what you want to say. And whether people like it, you're willing to discuss it. And it doesn't matter. And I think that's what we need to have.
I think Nabil's the opposite end of Nabil's. If you're looking at Nabil on the spectrum, if you look at his opposite, they would get a million excuses from our community leaders. Like, oh, this person is, they might have some errors, but in a whole, they're a good person. And they get like so many excuses put their way. But unfortunately, because the left has dominated the discussion, Nabil ends up on the short end of the stick, right? Yeah,
and by the way, I'm not criticizing anybody in that group. I'm saying I'm noticing a phenomenon among Muslims, not that group particularly, but among Muslims in general. Like there have been so many times we'll get DMs and messages on Facebook saying, "Yeah, I agree with what you guys are saying. I totally agree with it." Hey man, put it in the comments. Don't hide, dude. You're on Facebook, man. You know what I mean? Like, if you agree with something, voice your support for it. Otherwise, you're gonna have people run over you your whole life. You're going to have people dominate the way you think and make you afraid of being who you are. The whole idea is don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to be a Muslim. Don't be afraid to have your ideology. You're not doing anything incriminating. You're not saying anything that anybody else couldn't say, right? Why is it okay for, certain people on the left to say outrageous things? Like, they want, like, for example, we have certain Muslims on the left that will say they want to rip people's vaginas out, right? And they get away with that. Imagine if somebody on the right, let's say someone like Nabil said that about some woman. He wants to rip his vagina out because she doesn't deserve one. Imagine what kind of backlash he'd get because of that. But because of a woman's on the left-hand side and she's on a platform, on a leftist platform, it's okay to get away with those comments.
That woman can say something about the male sexual organ and say how she wants to cut it off.
Exactly.
That's perfectly fine.
That's my point. And we need to highlight these hypocrisies. And this goes back to what we've talked about before, Nabil and Sim. We had a podcast with you before about how there's double standards in the Muslim community and how we try to just, push these things under the rug and things like that. And so this is my attempt of trying to bring these discussions to the middle and actually look at these things objectively, not just label somebody, leftist or rightist and he's a misogynist or feminist or what. It doesn't really matter to me. Let's talk about the issues at hand and be frank about it.
Yeah, these are some amazing points, and I think the chief of which is the like deep cognitive dissonance, double standards and hypocrisy in Muslims who are ordinarily practicing regular, like they have normal aqidah, normal fiqh, like they're just normal Muslims. They don't have any weird views, and they are like they feel some cognitive dissonance because of the liberal slant in our Muslim discourse online. And I mean, this is my problem with the whole political Muslims who are involved in, political activism or whatever. Okay, you have your views, yeah, and they could be leftist, rightist, whatever, and you have some sort of justification for those views. That's cool. But then don't try to force those views on other Muslims, especially when it's an issue that is not black or white. It's not an iman kufr issue. And there's maslaha and mafsada on both sides. There's benefits and harms. It could be argued both ways, which is one of the reasons why I deliberately promote or support voices on the right, like retweeting Mike Cernovich and things like that, because I can argue it both ways using the same ayat and ahadith that these people are using. Like you talk about people like going to Standing Rock to protest on an issue that's completely unclear, and then whoever disagrees with them, now it's an issue of your iman is in question. This is like bullshit. Like, did you achieve anything legitimate, or you just went there to feel good? Like you went and now you got some street cred because you went and you protested with some Native Americans and they like blessed you with their pagan blessing, that you were like down. Like, what is this bullshit? Like,
so Nabil, the thing is like this here. I think there's a certain degree of this fake altruism.
You should let him go. Keep going, man.
No, I don't want the guy to get in trouble.
No, keep going.
No,
dude.
I think it's
I was like dying.
Look, I love the guy, but look, I understand where he's coming from. But here's the thing. I think let's get to the issue at hand, right? I think there's a certain degree of fake altruism that exists among the people, right? And they feel like they're doing something. And this is, let's be honest for a moment, this is the social justice warrior culture, right? I'm gonna tweet out something or Facebook something, and I've done my part and I feel good for the day. And in reality, you haven't accomplished anything. Right? Nothing at all. You just made yourself feel better, or at least think so. And the problem is, and what I think what Nabil is really trying to say, and what I'm trying to get at is just be true to yourself. Say what's on your mind. And I'm not saying, because most of these things that you're opinionated about, they have nothing to do with issues of Islam. They're not a matter of things that take you out of the deen or anything like that. They are valid opinions sometimes even within the deen. And I can kind of relate to Nabil when he says I lean more to the right for a number of reasons. For example, look, let's reverse the situation. Let's say Muslims were the ones in power in a government like this, right? We would be totally pro-Muslim, and we wouldn't want to have a lot of these oppositions coming out saying stupid liberal things, right? Can you imagine Muslims in living in Pakistan or in Saudi Arabia, advocating for gay rights? It would be unheard of, like completely unheard of, right? And the fact is that they're only doing it now because they're trying to fit in. They're trying to be liked. They're trying to be acceptable, And look, I'm not doubting their intention. It might be noble. It might be, maybe they have other ulterior motives where they're trying to infiltrate and maybe whatever, get a platform, whatever it is. But right is right and wrong is wrong. And I think what Nabil is saying is that, like, for example, on the right, a lot of issues related to social issues we kind of agree with, right? I mean, like, hey, we're not for abortion. We're not for faggotry, like he said. We're not for gay marriages. I mean, these are things that Muslims generally don't agree with. And so we, in a lot of ways, what the right tweets about or what they say is something that we could support with in ayat or hadith in general. And I kind of agree with that. Obviously, there's certain things that I wouldn't like. Milo, I wouldn't tweet his stuff. I mean, the guy's a nutter, I mean, he's a queer that's out there pretending to be a right winger, dude. I don't care about him, dude. But stuff like that, I wouldn't do, But I mean, there are valid points. Like, I think like Ben Shapiro is a guy that makes some valid points. I think he destroys a lot of leftist arguments. And the reason why I appreciate it is because it's founded in logic and not so much in emotions, right? And I think as Muslims, we gravitate toward that because our religion is based in logic and not in emotions, right? A lot of times we'll find that we make this argument when debating with Christians that, hey, your religion is really based in emotions rather than logic. Alhamdulillah, as Muslims, we have logic. Allah has, in the Quran, we can logically, follow Islam in that sense. So I think we gravitate toward that and say, look, you know what, let's look at an argument in terms of what is right and wrong and not so much of what feels good and feels bad. If that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. And you presented it in a more, less emotional way because I started ranting for a minute. Legitimately so. In any case, let's talk about some of the pushback that the Mad Mamluks has received. Now, I get a lot of haters because I'm deliberately trying to provoke people sometimes. But then you guys, just through just being yourselves. Like, you're not actually trying to offend anyone. You're just saying what's on your mind and speaking about topics that are relevant in the community. And you guys get a surprising amount of hate for some reason. And I guess it has to do with the leftist slant or liberal slant in the Muslim community. So let's talk about a bit about that.
Yeah, well, the Muslim community, you have to understand, is not used to this type of discussion as well. They're not used to having, discussions that are unprepared, people who are just voicing their thoughts and, well, it's not like we're not scholars, but I feel like me and Mahin and Mort, we do a fair amount of reading, and we're not, we might not be as eloquent as certain intellectuals in those specific fields, but I think we can talk about things in a general manner. And I think sometimes the community isn't really used to that kind of discussion. They're really they're more used to scholarly discussions or lecturing from community activists and stuff who come to their local mosque and tell them this is how you're supposed to think and this is who you should vote for and this is how you're supposed to be presenting yourself to America, And something I learned from just coworkers, Americans, white people in general, is like, stop worrying about what people think and just be who you are. And that was something that I really learned from them, that, in really being American is speaking your mind, and stop worrying about what other people are thinking.
So when did we first start getting? You remember when our first hate came? Any idea?
I think Nabil was the first.
I think it was Nabil's podcast was the first one.
Yeah.
Actually, I didn't even hear it, and then Sim and Mahin were like, because I wasn't on that podcast in the beginning, the first one. So they're like, you got to hear this one, man. It's gonna be awesome. And I'm like, and Nabil was like, you're a guy, you gotta listen to this. And I'm like, okay, cool. And right when I heard it, I'm like, I knew that we were gonna get back. I think I messaged Sim. I'm like, dude, did we get any backlash from this yet? Because I know it was gonna piss off a lot of people.
Yeah.
So I think Nabil, I think you had the honor of being.
You have to always remember that the backlash comes from the 1%, and those people who are already going to get triggered by it anyway, and they're the ones who are usually the most vocal in social media. But I don't think any of our numbers really went down after your podcast and even if they did, then that's great. That's just dead weight that was going to eventually fall off you, one way or another. We will have, if we didn't do it with you, we would have upset them with another episode. So I'm not worried about that in that sense. So my main thing is that did we address the topic responsibly, and did we try to think of it from every possible angle and make sure we approach it in at least, we step back from the discussion and kind of look at it as an observer and see if we've approached it in all the different angles that's possible. I mean, we can't approach every single angle, but some of the main talking points for that issue.
So I remember that show, by the way. So that's when I didn't even know who Nabil was. I think I just went ahead and I listened to, you had a show with was that Miriam Sadiq? Was that the one she has a podcast, right, Nabil? Yes. I listened to that one, and then I just heard a couple of your interviews. I think you were on with my boy Jibril, out in Abu Dhabi. I think he's in Abu Dhabi right now, but he's used to be in Windsor. Romanian brother.
The white guy.
Yeah, Gabriel Romani.
Yeah, Gabriel Romani. Yeah.
He used to come down. I knew him from Al Maghrib back in the day.
I met him once or twice before. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was the kind of clips I had of you, and then I just remember on the podcast, I kind of forgot that we were recording this. I was like, oh, this is the dude I just met. We're just chilling. So I just let loose.
Awesome.
And I remember the most vile comment came on Reddit, because it was somebody who was not one of our subscribers, but somebody who's following Nabil and listened to our podcast, and then she was hella triggered.
Oh, wow.
You know what I mean? And the only thing we did that concerned us a little bit at some point was So the rest of us, like me personally, I've never worried about like I work at a steel mill and I add value, and they people quit left and right, so they're not gonna fire me over some dumb thing I say on a Muslim podcast, right? Okay, so number one, I'm not worried about that. Sheikh Amr though, he's like he works in the Islamic field, right? So his brand is something that we have to kind of like keep in mind at all times.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think that's something that one of my friends who listens to all our shows, he's like, after he listened to your podcast, Nabil, he was like, you guys need to be careful about like damaging Amr's brand, because sometimes if it gets taken out of context, it could do some damage. That's the thing. You have to keep in mind.
I agree with that, and I think lately though, I think the episode that got the most probably negative feedback was the roundtable one that we did recently. Yeah. And that was kind of like with me and Moga and some of our comments about those things, but
the dog pound one and that one too. The last two roundtables.
I'm talking about the dog pound mainly.
Okay.
That's what I'm talking about. Yeah, but the thing that I've noticed that, look, I get comments on Twitter and people tweet at me. So I noticed this one thing. One guy was pissed, like livid, that we had that that salam love, whatever it was, what was that? I forgot.
Noor Maznavi.
Yeah. And the fact that there was a sodomite story on there, right? Okay. So they're getting mad because it wasn't conservative.
We didn't even talk about that sodomite story. We just mentioned it was in there.
Right. So they were livid about that. Okay. I guess it wasn't conservative enough for them. But at the same time, they're tweeting back at me talking about how I'm catering more to the right. I'm thinking like, dude, you just, tweeted against what the left is all about. Right? I mean, essentially, like they would embody that, And I'm thinking in my head, like, it just seems like confusing sometimes. Like some of the people that are just hating, they're hating just because they want to hate, like, and that's cool, dude. I mean, if that's how you pass your time, I mean, I'll be honest, dude. I hate to be like a douchebag, but I don't really care what anybody says. I really don't.
Look,
I mean,
for me, I want to be able to show this podcast to my kids and whatever when they're older, and hopefully they learn something from it, and I feel like as long as I can be true to them in terms of the wisdom that all these amazing guests come on and pass on to our children and the world, I feel like we've done our job. But I feel like if I'm doing stuff just for the sake of entertainment, that's when I start getting really worried, and that's when I can't sleep at night, and I'm really worried that maybe I'm inviting the wrath of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on us, that because when you're involved in the religion and spreading ideas related to the religion, you don't want to be a cause for destruction on the religion. You don't want to bring that kind of wrath on yourself. So that's something that's always I'm always thinking about.
Believe it or not, I actually completely echo Sim's point. And sometimes I wonder, like, can my spirituality like elevate while being a part of Mad Mamluks? Just because we're so ratchet, in a way. But I think about it a lot because in Hajj of 2015, when I went, I made dua to Allah that like He involves me in some kind of project that I could really commit to and really dive into. I had no idea what that was gonna be, and so within the year, I landed in Mad Mamluks. So definitely believe that's an answering of that dua. So at the same time, I understand that our end purpose, right, isn't to make podcasts and get listeners and all that stuff. It's to like basically, live a life of piety. And then, as Dr. Shadi al-Masri mentions in one of his articles, is that wilaya is the goal of every believer. And that's something that, and ascending spiritual ranks is something that I think about a lot, right? And sometimes I'm like, okay, does my personality allow for that? Or do I have to change things? We talk about it. I know Sim and I have talked about it before as well. And it's trying to find that balance. So, yeah, I definitely want to echo that, I'm on the same wavelength in that sense, that I really, kind of am cognizant of that. Cause I know that what's on the internet's forever, right? Like my kids are right now very young. sometimes it's in some points like my personality. I'm not gonna mind what they hear, but at the same time, I want them to inshallah benefit from that as well.
Well, the way I look at it is like this. I mean, of course, there's an element where I do it for trying to benefit the community, but at the same time, I do believe that this is also a platform for me to voice opinions that I feel are needed to be out there. I feel like, yes, I am an opinionated person, but I feel like I have valid opinions, and that I do want to share that. And the reason why I do that is because I enjoy getting comments back. I enjoy receiving criticism because that's the way I know that I'm constantly checking what I believe. If the way I look at it is this: if I'm gonna make my points and somebody can come and criticize me openly, can I defend my point? And if I can't, that means I'm learning. That, hey, you know what, maybe I need to reassess my points, my views, how I look at Islam in general. And for me, I'm using this more so as a tool for myself as well too, because now I'm getting a chance to validate my views as a Muslim on certain issues. And I believe it or not, even the people that leave hate comments, they help me grow as a Muslim, as a Muslim in 2017 who struggles with, being in America versus some of the religious issues that we have, all those things. And I think that some of the comments that we make and the feedback that we get, these are issues that the future generation can look back on and be like, hey, this has been going on for a long time. You know, Muslims in America have wrestled with certain issues for a very long time, and it's not exactly clear. And they might hear these tapes later on and be like, hey, you know what? This has been going on for a long time, and this is how some of these individuals dealt with it. You know, this is how they got through with it. You know, and this is what they're thinking, exactly what we're thinking. You know, we had that same thought. You know, because a lot of times people are too shy or ashamed to say what they're feeling because it may not be the cool opinion. It may not be like or it might be the opinion where, oh my God, how could you say that thing? How could you even think that? It's haram, you know? And so they end up getting caught and feeling embarrassed about their own opinion. And this goes back to what Sim said in many episodes before, being comfortable in your skin. I mean, the Sahabas were not shy to ask Rasulullah about certain things. Meaning, I'm not saying we're like the prophets, not at all. But what I'm saying is that there was a certain openness when it came to discussing issues, and it was not for entertainment, although it might have been entertaining at some point. But the idea was that it was just being very honest and open with oneself and saying, "Hey, where do I fit into all of this? How do I approach this in light of Islam and being a Muslim?" And I think that's why I do it.
Another theme that I think I see a lot in people's critiques of us is where they think we're speaking on behalf of the people without proper representation. Like we alluded to this a little bit ago. Like, for example, and it's funny. So I'll tell you, we had Imam Omar Muhammad on, right? So we asked him about BLM, not knowing having any idea what his stance would be. Imam Omar, as you know, went in on BLM. He just tore a new one, the entire movement. And the feedback we got was nobody could disagree with Imam Omar. He's an imam. He's a black imam in the south side of Chicago, right? But they were like, no, you guys are not allowed to ask that question because you're not black. You're coming from a point of privilege. You're not coming from the right spot. I told this specifically to Imam Dawood Walid, and he laughed. He was cracked. And they were like, these guys told me, they were like, you need to get Imam Dawood, someone who understands cultural appropriation and racism in the Muslim community. I straight up told Imam Dawood at Sheikh Hamza's house. Like, this is the feedback. I told him verbatim what happened. These Desi immigrant kids or lawyers or something, elitists from the East Coast hit us up or wherever they were. And we're like, you can't ask that question. And he laughed. He laughed at him.
What happened on the podcast when we talked about it?
On Dawood Walid's podcast? Yeah, he did the same thing. He's like, most imams in the inner city, in African-American imams, will not be down with the BLM agenda. And so that's number one. The issue of the dog pound. We talked about sisters getting cute with sheikhs and vice versa, right? And the feedback we got, hey, how come you didn't have no sisters on the show? And and it's hypocritical because we've had sisters on the show. We had sisters.
Well, how come their music didn't have any scholars on the show that were actually involved in that in those type of scandals?
No, but that's what I said in the podcast. I'm like, wait, did they bring a sheikh on to talk about to help write the song lyrics when they made it? They didn't do that, right?
Right, exactly.
They had no consideration. So why should I consider you?
And even we had a show with on feminism where we had a sister on the panel, and they just dismissed her. They're like, the comments were like, well, you guys need to get confident women. I'm like, so like, I mean, what do you guys want? Like, there's arbitrary rule when people just don't like what you have. There's arbitrary rules, and the thing I want to go back to is that, you know, we talked about defining our audience, because right now, I'll put it out there, we have probably more downloads than any other Muslim podcast, right? Because number one, we put out a show every week. We're about 80 published episodes. Even though there's been shows that have been out longer, they only put out a show once every like 2 months or whatever. You know what I mean? They've been out like, so number one, we're the Muslim podcast in this format. So people just assume that we have to represent them. Like, no, dude, make your own. Like Sim went back to the original point. Like, he didn't like what Rogan was saying on Islam. He made his own podcast. You want a feminist podcast? Go start it up. You'll get 10 followers.
And currently,
dude, I got criticized for that. Remember that chick in the comments? She was like, "Hey, what do you mean go make your own podcast? Why don't you just bring somebody else?" I don't need to bring anybody on the podcast.
It's our platform, bro. Like, hey, you ain't paying us. You ain't bankrolling us,
I
bro.
know. If you want to fund me or something, I mean, maybe you can bribe me a little bit. But right now, this is my opinion. I mean,
and not just that. Look, there's so many people from around the world who I'm personally helping. At least 5 different people who I'm helping in technical advisement, helping them get the right equipment, showing them the ropes, in essence, helping them start their own platform. So if you want, you know, I'm not afraid of like competition to the Mad Mamluks. I want everyone to get better. You know, we want to be able to push ourselves to get better and learn from each other, and everyone get. I'm so proud of Kareem, by the way, man. Kareem Sirajuddin was a guest of ours who's come on, talked about some popular topics, dead bedrooms and what else?
Gender roles.
And
right,
he started his podcast. He's killing it, man.
Awesome.
He did a great job with that podcast. And yeah, you know, that's what I want to see.
Muhammad Gilan.
Yeah, Muhammad Gilan. He's doing great on his podcast.
Safina Society.
Yeah, I mean, I think what Sim is trying to say is, and even like Naveed's pod, right? I mean, right now we're on your podcast, dude. You know, we don't mind helping anybody else out with stuff, but don't expect us to change our views to suit you and based on your feelings. We're human beings. We have our views. We could be wrong. We're not saying we're right, but this is just our platform. We created this platform partly partly because we felt like other radio shows or other media outlets were not representing what we feel. And so we did this. And so likewise, there's so many opportunities for you to go out and do. I mean, I'm actually going as far as to say that I bet you somebody could create a counter podcast just to our material and probably get famous. You know what I mean? Like, you could even use our name and get famous off of that if it really took that, right? But the point being is that you have the opportunity now at your fingertips. And this goes back to what Sim was saying, and Rogan called a lot of people out on that and said, listen, instead of complaining and trying to get on somebody else's bandwagon, do your own thing. Man up.
Yeah, I think that's, now you guys are sort of on the other side of the equation. Now you guys are sort of, you can get where Joe Rogan is coming from when he says, you guys need to like do your own thing, as opposed to complaining about what I'm doing, you know? And I think the major issue is you have to differentiate between legitimate criticism and, bullshit criticism. And like, bullshit criticism is like the stuff that you mentioned when like people criticized your episode with, Omar Mohammed, talking about you guys are not black, so you can't ask it. I mean, this is a really stupid criticism, and for example, that you guys don't have enough credibility to speak on topics because you're not scholars. Like, okay, when you have alleged or people who claim to be Salafis talking about feminism is Islamic, like, at this point, like, it's a free-for-all. Because now, like, you're all bullshitting us when you're talking about you don't have scholars. Because you really don't give a shit about scholarly opinions when you're talking about your pet projects. And now you want us to you want to hold us to like the ivory tower standard that you've set just so we can express our opinion. That's nonsense. Especially when, for example, like you guys are talking about you want to serve the community. I believe that you guys are serving the community because you're representing the way Muslims are in sort of on a day-to-day basis. Because if you think about a scholar or an academic, they have a certain, reputation, and they can't say certain things that you guys can say, or they can't be a certain way. There's something expected of them as people, as a role model in the community. So the way you guys, present yourself is just the way Muslims are. And I think that's important because people want to hear, like, people relate to people who are like them, and people like people who are like them, and ultimately, as content creators and podcasters, this is just the way that you guys are helping the community by just being authentic and being yourselves,
And the thing is, when we had to talk about scholarly issues, we have Sheikh Amr. So, I mean, like, dude is an Azhar, and he's not one of those distant Azhar cats that I found out about. There's these distant Azhar cats that, like, apparently, like, just go back for their exams, like, once a semester. But the dude was in there, like, day in, day out, right? You guys can attest to that.
So I lived with Sheikh Amr in Egypt, right? And he's a beast, right? And honestly, one of the reasons why I think we wanted to bring Sheikh Amr on the podcast is not because we've known him for a long time, but because we recognize his humbleness. And I can say that when he's not here, because I don't like, he gets uncomfortable, but he is probably one of the most sincere people of knowledge that I know. I mean, he generally won't say things because of, offending somebody, or he will say what he knows to be, like, right and wrong. That's how he approaches his issues. And I feel like that we have him for that. He grounds us in that, and we try to refer any of those questions that really get into fiqh and religion. We go back to Amr on that, and at least for myself, and I think that's the issue. I think Nabil hit it on the nail on the head. That, look, we can say things. We're at liberty to say things that maybe even certain scholars are wanting to say, but they can't say it as candidly as us because certain things are expected of them, right? And then there's also other scholars who, I hate to say it, but they're taking a certain position just because they want to maintain their relevance. It's a business for them. They want, if they're not relevant to the community, they're not going to get attention and not going to get speaking engagements and not going to get money, right? And so they do it for whatever reason they want, but we don't get paid. We're simply here just doing it for our own individual reasons, and we're just saying what we want, and it's just it is what it is. You like it, you don't like it, you don't like it. We're open to criticism, we're open to commentary, and we invite it and we encourage it, but we're not going to change just because of what people think of us.
What about you, Sib and Mahin? What do you guys think about that?
Well, my main thing is, man, there's always going to be people who detractors. The example that you always gave about the crabs in the bucket. As soon as one crab is trying to get out, the rest of the crabs start pulling them back in. So, I mean, right now, you just, a couple minutes ago, you were swearing, and how many people discount whatever you say because you swear, And on the opposite side, when other people are marching for LGBT causes, they get a pass. I mean, what's worse, that Nabil Aziz swore, or that someone is actually advocating for LGBT,
ripping out somebody's genitals, right? I mean,
those are that's another thing, So the hypocrisy in the discourse is just unbelievable right now. So,
I mean, for me, the biggest frustration is, so I have a lot of, like, the online stuff doesn't bother me as much, but I've got a lot of friends who are probably in SJW camp. Right, so we text. I show these guys some of these text messages that I get, and it's like intellectual gymnastics. There's all these random words these are words that when I was in college, like appropriation. What else is that? What are the other ones off top of your patriarchy?
Yeah,
all these random words that I'm like, bro, when, like, we used to kick it in college, you didn't talk like what the hell happened?
Yeah.
Like, I remember that's in the good old days, but now it's like, these kind of terminologies where, safe spaces and all this, it's just irritating when people use this terminology that, like, we can't even, like, I'm like, listen, I'm not
objectification. Remember that with Moga?
Okay.
Because he said he watched that music video on mute.
Your chauvinistic opinion.
Not mentioning any point, like, where Ben Shapiro calls out, like, some Nicki Minaj video that's talking about, like, how she just wants to get down and dirty with some dude, right? And then people were, like, upset that he was like sexually like objectifying her. I'm like, yo, she put herself out a freaking video talking about that. Like, what's your problem?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Look, I think the problem with this is that people don't want to be restricted. And when you start labeling people because of their opinions, and you're trying to restrict their opinions or their voice by labeling them a certain way, they get agitated and they feel like they're backed up against the wall. And that's why I was telling them earlier, or telling you guys earlier, that terms like, anti-Semitic and Nazi, these terms don't carry the same weight they carried 10, 15 years ago, because certain individuals and certain groups overuse them. Like even the term Islamophobia, to me, I think it's overly used, and the fact is that now it's lost its actual effect, and you can't distinguish between someone who's really an Islamophobe or someone who's just being labeled as one, right? And I think that this labeling of people is making people more frustrated. So rather than tackling the issue at hand, it's easier just to label them and put them in a category and then dismiss that category and say, well, they're just bigoted people or they just belong into that category, so we don't have to respond to the arguments anymore. And I think that's what's frustrating a lot of people.
And yeah, but at the end of the day, like, I told my wife this. She listens to most of our shows, and the stuff that she doesn't like, she just blows it off as like boys talking, right?
Locker room talk,
right? But now, granted, I can't say that like scholars are necessarily listening to every show we have, but I've got connections with a lot of ulama in America, and I don't think I've had a single one hit us up and say, "You guys are out of line. You guys are crazy. You guys need to like slow your roll." No one has said that. Granted, like Sheikh Hamza and I are like, we're pretty tight. Sheikh Hamza said he doesn't listen to any podcasts, so I'm like, keep it that way then. But at the end of the day, like I think if a scholar I respected came to me and said like, hey man, you guys need to probably like check yourself. But Joe listens to our show, Sheikh Joe Bradford. I mean, he ain't no lightweight.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Dr. Gilan is listen to all our shows. I don't think if these guys we respect, we know that they have a good heart. They're coming from a good place. If they gave us nasihad saying that like you guys are, out of line on this subject, or you guys should get more educated on this, then we would certainly consider that. But when there's a bunch, like the funniest thing is when you see on Facebook where somebody's triggered, and then they'll tag all their friends who are going to be triggered. It's like, yo, check this out.
You have to listen to that.
You have to listen to this.
Oh my God.
Scroll to minute 21:03.
Yeah, exactly. Like you have to go to 33 seconds and listen right there. Oh, what did he just say? Oh my God. I mean, it got to a point where I think poor Sim had to actually block somebody off our page because they just they went on some incoherent rant and they didn't even listen to the entire episode. They heard something like through the grapevine and just went off on a tangent on our page, and it just became ridiculous. And so that kind of stuff, I think at the end of the day, and I think Nabil can relate to this too, or anybody in social media. You're not going to respond to that negativity because it doesn't get anywhere. They're not there for a sincere dialogue or conversation. They just want to, just vent off their feelings,
Exactly.
And it's not going to get anywhere.
That's something that other content creators also should pay attention to, is that, look for sincere dialogue with people who are actually wanting to gain benefit from the exchange, that not that, that they want to say what they want, but also they're willing to learn too. And within the first few minutes of that engagement, you'll know right away what kind of person that person is, that whether they actually are a truth seeker or whether they're just someone who just wants to get their point across for their team and score some points in whatever social media group they're in, and show it to their buddies how they got you in a gotcha moment.
Yeah. My personal approach, by the way, is that I'm much more unfiltered on the mic because my opinion is that most people are going to be too lazy to listen to. Some of our shows are 2 hours long, 3 hours long. They're going to like nitpick something. Whereas if I post something on social media, that is, something that they will maybe have a screenshot of, etc. And sometimes I just do stuff for fun. The other day, Daniel Hakikachu went in on liberals. and SJWs. So I just shared it, and then I only shared it just to see what was gonna happen. And some dude like posted a comment, a guy I met like 10 years ago, about how like Hajj should be haram as long as the oppressive Saudi state is in charge of Mecca and Medina. And like Hasib Noor and people like that just went in. It was like essentially just put this dude just like put himself out there and just got eaten up because like you just displayed your ignorance to the entire world. Yeah. And sometimes I just do that for fun. Well, I don't really like comment. I'll just like throw some bait out there and then see who bites. And somebody just comes out with something ridiculous like Hajj is haram now.
Oh my God.
You know what I mean? But Nabil, like, so I wanted to ask you. So I ask people to like some of the people you that are your haters that I think would like some of your content, especially when I tell guys like, yo, he got this one interview. He talked to the Muslim the auntie who wrote the book on the woman's sex manual, right? And you know, they were like, "Oh, I didn't hear that." But he's like, "If I don't like the guy, I won't listen to any of his shows." And I feel like a lot of your shows, people would like your episodes. Do you feel like people are listening? Do you feel like your haters are listening to your shows, or they're just turned off because you do post a lot more on Twitter and Facebook and on your website? You know, probably, and then your podcasts are there as well. But you probably have more of that than necessarily we might do. You know what I mean? So do you find that that's turning people away from your podcasts, that you're not, or are you getting hate from people who actually listen to your shows?
Yeah, so I'm a little bit more deliberate about being selective about my audience, whereas you guys are. Your platform is a little bit broader, so you can't do or say certain things because you don't want to alienate people in the community that are technically your audience. But my audience are a bit more specific. First of all, I want my audience to be mostly men, and second of all, I want my audience to be people who aren't snowflakes. So I'm very deliberate in saying what I say and doing what I do in order to filter those people out, because you know, even if these people who don't listen to me could get benefit or could agree with some of my material, I actually don't want them listening to me. Because if you can't take my shit posting on Twitter, then I really don't want you listening, because you're like a low consciousness individual. You're not willing to see past the sort of surface level and, you know, dig down deeper into issues. You're somebody who makes snap decisions based on, you know, emotion. Those are people who I don't want listening to me. And there are people who are my longtime readers. There's a brother, his name is Ahsan. He disagrees with me. And he's the guy who I did that, email discussion back and forth with, and I posted it on the website, you know, American Muslims in 2017. And he disagrees with some of my points, and we go back and forth, and that's perfect, because this is a smart guy, and I want people like this on my team, even if they disagree with me. I don't actually care if you disagree. I don't need an echo chamber. What I do need is like intelligent male individuals who are, you know, smart enough about these things, and who think like Muslims at the end of the day. So that's why I am the way I am. So if these people, they actually, because they don't like me for some emotional reason and they don't listen to me, that's totally fine by me, because I'm cultivating a community of buyers as opposed to like looky-loos.
I think, just from an outsider's perspective, when I look at your content, I do realize what you're trying to do, and in terms of trying to getting people to look at things a different way. My only critique would be that sometimes when you are fully on the left, right, or even though you don't even realize it, the left has set up boundaries and framework in the way you operate and the way you think about things. When you retweet someone from something from Milo, right? At least you used to. I don't remember seeing anything recent, but back before his fall from grace, when someone sees that from the outside, it's just too new to them, and I feel like you may need to lay some of the groundwork before you kind of retweet those kind of messages, you know? So I think that's something that needs to be thought of as well, that yeah, people, just because somebody gets offended by a retweet of Milo or whoever on the right, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're not a critical individual. It just means that you haven't really broken some of the boundaries that are in their mind. And I know it's like a difficult process, but I think in the end, your listeners and people who come across your platform, they'll become more whole, you know, as human beings. If you can start letting them start thinking for themselves, and they won't even need any type of ideologue to support them, you know, or to be, for them to be behind, you know, they can be upstanding Muslims on their own.
First, actually, when you mentioned Milo, so I think Nabil is one of the guys that first brought awareness of who Milo was to me. I think you did the episode with Thor Holt and that lady from Breitbart, England, remember?
Yeah.
And I think Milo's name came up, and then I saw it pop up on Rogan's feed, so I listened to it, and I was like, yeah, this dude like hates Muslims, but like, and I think you remember you and I would talk offline about it a little bit. I was like, but a lot of his stuff, he's entertaining, so I listened to a lot of stuff, but like, I think that's just, but maybe your niche is you want somebody, because like me, I was never like the fact that you try, like if I had a problem, like I ask you questions sometimes, and I remember like, why do you retweet this guy? And then and your answers were always pretty rational, like, you know, on Cernovich. Like, so Cernovich, I want to say, I was gonna actually hit you up like 2 weeks ago. Cause remember, after Eid Salah, Cernovich, just post stuff on Facebook, and it's just like Germany in 2017. All it is a video of like Muslims praying Eid Salah, right? I don't know if you saw that. And like, you just see all the comments of people who are like, they're taking over. This is what's going to happen to America if, you know, we let the left win, et cetera, right? And I was thinking about hitting you up, be like, yo, what's up with Mike? But I remember you saying something once to me. It was like, listen, Cernovich at the end of the day is a kafir, right? He's not going to be like, these guys are kafirs. They're not like, their agenda isn't to like protect Islam, right? So we have to understand that. And I think a lot of Muslims are so caught up in like, well, we want people who want to be our friends. So so for example, tomorrow, my wife wanted to go see this comedy show. This dude named, you know, Jeremy McClellan. You know, who
the hell is this guy?
He's a comedian.
Oh my god.
He's a Christian comedian who has made his base Muslims, young Muslims who have found that, and rightly so, they found that the comedians, the Muslim comedians, are pretty terrible, and he saw that his current market with
it's like Daisy specifically.
Yeah. He saw that his comedy career wasn't really doing that well, but you know what? These Muslims, you know, they like my jokes.
Easy target.
I don't blame the guy, to be honest.
Hey, get your money, man.
Really smart, dude. That's a really good move. What he did, I got to hand it to him. I'm like, man, you saw a market that was really deficient, has terrible comedians, and you know they can't. Who can even blame a lot of the Muslim comedians for the language that they use? They can't. They're held hostage by everyone in the community.
No,
so
it's not even that, dude. Muslim comedians are just corny, dude. Not even that. Even like. Dude, even the ones that don't even follow that religion. I mean, like, for example, like, what's the guy?
Dean Abdullah?
No, the other one, Aziz, right?
Aziz Ansari?
Dude,
no, he's an apostate.
No, Aziz is
yeah, he's
Muslim.
an apostate,
Muslim.
but I'm saying from
He's
the
not
background,
Muslim.
yeah, no, but even then, before we even knew the apostate, he was corny as hell, dude. I mean, other people like are just corny, dude. I'm sorry, dude. Even when I see like people like just
No, forget about that, man. We're not talking about even on that level. We're talking about the local comedian circuit, you know,
who's a local comedian? Anybody? Any names?
Azhar Osman?
Yeah, corny.
Yeah, been laughing.
Been laughing. Yeah, corny.
He's not very good.
Yeah.
I mean, dude.
Aman Ali, good friend of mine, but I like his Somali cab driver jokes though.
Who's that one Arab guy?
Dino Bidallah, right?
No, there's another guy.
Amr something? The dude was on the plane?
Hassan Minhaj.
Oh, there's Hassan Minhaj.
No, but he's
No, but Hassan Minhaj, that guy ended up marrying a Hindu chick, dude.
Well, no, it doesn't matter. Okay, listen, Hassan Minhaj is funny, and he's got a sizable audience. Okay, he's the exception, not the rule. Majority of Muslim comedians are terrible. If you look at it, they're really objectively. Who's that one sister with the cerebral palsy? She's got
the Palestinian girl.
Yeah, what's her name? She's a comedian too.
I don't know.
Terrible.
She was on TED. Real terrible, dude. I saw one.
Who's that guy? Maz Jobrani. He's another one.
Yeah, no, but he's like weird. He's like Iranian, like half. I don't know what the hell.
He's another terrible.
Yeah,
comedian.
he's terrible, dude.
Half Rafidi.
Yeah, so we don't even deal with him. No, but the thing is, like, I saw like the Allah Made Me Funny, like the comedy tour, like, or whatever, some clip of. It's so cheesy, dude. Like, I find it just as cheesy as like Muslim rap or Muslim hip hop. It's so cheesy, dude. Like, you're a cornball, dude. Stop that, dude. Like, it's not pretty. It's not funny. It's not cute, dude. You're not. You know what I mean?
The thing is that comedy has been taken to new levels of standards. I mean, there's a lot of desensitization that's happened.
You got to be vulgar.
You got to be vulgar.
You got to be you got to be a bigoted. You can't. I mean, it's just what. I mean, even if you're joking, you got to be able to make up jokes about, like, you know, other races and other generally within Islamic culture it doesn't exist, right? You don't do those kind of things.
I think, right? Jeremy's because he's Christian, so he's not going to be swearing.
Chappelle is Muslim,
but
he doesn't talk anything about Islam, right? So.
Yeah, we can't count him. But so Jeremy, he's Christian, and then all he does is talk about beer. So he comes back to Pakistan. He's like talking about his biwi and his biryani. Like I was like, he's using Urdu words, and you see like he's got like 40,000 likes and it's all Desis just eating it up.
Yeah,
right. And it's just like, but again, I don't blame the guy. But I forgot why I mentioned his name, to be honest.
You and your wife are about to go to.
Yeah, but before that, like there was this concept about Jeremy. Like Nabil, refresh my memory. What was the point? There's a point actually.
You know what it is? It's like brown people and black people are totally down with white supremacy if white supremacy is making them or feel good and, you know, making them feel like they're victims. So they're cool with Jeremy McClellan, who's like a kafir because he drops the, you know, Urdu slang and he's making Pakistani references about spicy food or whatever. And here's the thing. If you're a kafir and you actually like Islam and you're still a kafir after that, I don't trust you. Because there's something wrong with you. Like, if you actually like Islam but you still don't convert, then there's something wrong with you. If you've got some sort of agenda. I actually prefer people who are, you know, open enemies.
Yeah, well, you know, okay, Nabil, there's a lot of people who just want, because we live in a town that is considered like the, probably the Bible house of the country because it's got the Harvard of Bible colleges called Wheaton College. So we live in a very heavily dominated Christian area, and a lot of Christians who come to the masjid, they just want to build bridges. They just want to have conversation. They just want to know us better. It's not necessarily, I used to think like you about these type of things and like, no, we can't trust them. They have an ulterior motive. And there are people within those church groups that come that they are, you know, there to proselytize.
Yeah, they're trying to win you over by love.
Yeah, they're definitely. But think about it. We would do the same too if we're going to a Christian church and we want to build bridges and someone's asking about Islam, we're going to be convincing about it. We're going to want them to become Muslim, and I don't see that as something that's inherently venomous or something that we should feel threatened about. I feel like it's our job as community members of our masjid and whatever that we make sure that our community is well informed and they know these arguments really well, so that they don't get into any kind of traps or whatever.
Look, Nabil, here's one thing too. Since you live out in Dubai now, it might be a little bit different, but there are certain people that they know that we're not going to agree with them on religion, like in terms of God and whatever, but they can appreciate our values, right? For example, I got this homeboy of mine. He's a Yemenite Jew. Like, he's a straight up, like, I don't know, like a rabbi, dude, right? And I talk to him a lot. And surprisingly, there are a lot of things that we talk about that are in Judaism within Islam. Even the same types of like sectarian differences that we have in opinions and fiqh, and they exist within Judaism. And we talk about these things. And he says, look, you know what? Honestly, I look at a lot of things as a Jew, and we don't. You have to understand the Jewish mind. We don't look and see who's a prophet and who's not a prophet. We look at what's in line with the Torah and what's not. And a lot of things in Islam are in line with the Torah, and so I don't have a problem with Islam. You know, I think Muslims are monotheistic and they don't believe in that, and so great. And you guys are generally, monotheistic people, and so that's all I look at really. You guys don't do the break the commandments, and so I'm good with you people. And he doesn't try to make me a Jew or nothing like that. You know what I mean? We just talk about stuff and we agree on a lot of things. You know, and so there are going to be individuals that are a different religion that we could just vibe with, right? It's going to be there. But I do agree that I'll be honest, dude. If I'm going to be 100% honest, I'm more wary of those Christian missionaries that want to come around and act like they like me, dude. I know you don't like the minute you catch them on the side, they'll slip. They'll be like, it's, pagan moon god, this stuff, they throw those comments out there. And so I agree with, in some way of where you're coming from, where you expect them to just hate no matter what because they have an agenda in their hand. And I get that. I'm never going to accept. Look, I'm never going to look for the approval of a non-Muslim on my opinions, right? Because at the end of the day, your opinion doesn't mean jack shit to me. At the end of the day, right? I'm not a Muslim because David feels like I should be a Muslim, right? I'm a Muslim because I believe in it. So I expect them to be offended by certain positions that I have, right? For example, I have no problem saying to a person that, look, in an Islamic state, if somebody, were to apostate, the worst punishment could possibly be execution. It could be. I don't have to apologize for that, dude. Some people get uncomfortable with that, and I noticed that some of these individuals who are trying to be friendly, quote, with Muslims, they like to talk about these things to make you feel a little bit uncomfortable so that you have to try to rationalize these things with them. And in the process of that, you tend to reanalyze your faith, right? And I think Muslims need to be very, very careful about that. So in that regard, I agree with you in terms of not expecting them to agree with what you say, and if they don't, and if they do accept it and believe it, why haven't they believed and became Muslim? I get that skepticism there, but at the same time, we also have to realize that Allah guides who He guides at the end of the day, right? There are many people, like for example, Abu Talib believed that whatever Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said was true, but for whatever reasons, he was unable to accept Islam. But he advocated for Islam a lot, right? So I don't think we could say he was a bad person in that sense, but it was just circumstantial. Things can't change sometimes.
Sure. And the one thing is, the point that I see why people like Jeremy, and they're not gonna buy your reasoning for supporting a guy like Cernovich. They're saying, well, Cernovich or Milo, they will incite people to hate Islam more. And I think it's valid when you see things happening like what happened in North Carolina a couple years ago, where the 3 kids got killed in their apartment building. Or I'm not going to say the number of cases, but I think the 3 kids getting killed.
The Chapel Hill murders.
The Chapel Hill murders, to me, was purely religious based, especially if you follow the whole story, right?
There's thousands of it. You don't even have to go that extreme. There are thousands of cases of Islamophobia. That's not what my contention was.
Yeah.
My contention was that you're building psychological barriers in your children,
right,
and you're preventing them from realizing their true potential.
But my point is, I think people will, one of the critiques they might have of Nabil, I've heard this, is that, well, because you're in Dubai, there's probably not a chance someone's going to kill you for your Islam, right? In Dubai. But they're even though it's you might not die for your Islam here, like those 3 kids, rahimahullah, they're that chance is still there, and that kind of rhetoric, that's why the whole Trump card is he's spewing the rhetoric of hate more so and I kind of see it in a way.
With Cernovich, it's not him, it's his followers.
Yeah.
You see, and you saw it when Nabil was on Cernovich's show.
Right.
You saw the type of followers and the type of questions that Nabil was receiving was clearly venomous. There's no doubt about it. That his followers are pretty much like that.
But
I think you'll agree about that. I know Cernovich itself, you kind of opened up my mind, Nabil, on Cernovich, and you showed me a lot of the different nuances related to his platform, and he's definitely not alt-right. So I'm not on that. The
cool thing
train.
about Cernovich though is that he's saying, listen, whatever my views are, it doesn't really matter. I'm going to invite people to come on the show and speak their mind. If they can convince you, they can convince you, right? It's not my business. I'm going to try to maybe present my points. But here's the thing though. there are individuals, Nabil, that do change the environments or of the country and the way people view certain individuals, right? For example, when it comes to Trump, do I think Trump himself is to blame for certain individuals? Not at all. But Trump did appeal to a certain demographics of people that generally nobody paid attention to because of their of some of their bigoted views, and he gave them a platform, and he actually made them feel empowered. And that, what it does, it changes the undertone or of society, basically. And so it makes it more, I guess what I'm saying is that it makes it acceptable for you to hate Muslims, and be like, yo, it's cool, dude. Trump did it. Trump's going to ban you guys, things like that, that kind of rhetoric wasn't around before. I mean, to that degree. I mean, of course it's going to be there, Nabil. Like, we're not doubting that. There are people who generally hate Muslims, hate Islam, they hate colored people, whatever it is, that's there. But to give that a legitimate platform through an individual is where I have a problem, right? Meaning that I don't think anyone who gives people that platform should be given a platform, in my opinion.
And I mean, these are excellent points, and I don't want to, I'll just leave them there without sort of trying to argue my position, because we want to close out the show in a few minutes. But these are excellent points, and I mean, they are valid counterpoints to my ideas in how we should engage with these people, But I mean, if we going back to the Jeremy McClellan thing, and Muslim support of him, and people like Glenn Greenwald, who is homosexual, that's fine, okay? They're saying nice things about Muslims and they make us feel good, but then let Hamza Yusuf, who is white and he's actually a Muslim, so he has certain rights over us, and on top of that, he's a person of knowledge. Let Hamza Yusuf, make a mistake in stating his opinion about a certain issue, and then all of that goes out the window, and he's a white supremacist. He thinks too highly of himself. He's treated like a god by the Muslims. This guy, and then you find all of this hatred coming out towards white people, in the most venomous way, just because Hamza Yusuf said something that these people don't agree with. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah, I hear you. That's pretty much the double standard again that we've been kind of alluding to of things like the entire episode.
So let's talk about your supporters. I know you mentioned that you're getting thousands of downloads every episode. How has the response from the supporters been otherwise? Are they sharing your episodes? Are they commenting? Are they giving you reviews on iTunes and things like that?
That's the thing. Our supporters, I feel like it's not reflective, in the reviews, because, I mean, how many reviews are there on iTunes? 40 reviews or something, but
iTunes makes it really hard to do reviews, by the way.
Yeah, I've tried to do it myself.
It's not user friendly. I'll tell you that much. You've got to, and because we try to use Istan as a platform, and they're like, oh, I forgot my password. A lot of people because they're not still tech savvy. Even they don't even know how to find the podcast app. People listen to our show off the website or off YouTube, and I'm like, yo, and all you're looking at is the Mad Mamluks logo when you're listening to us on YouTube. They're like, yeah, just easier for us because they're just not savvy at all with podcasts. Yeah,
so we're finding that a lot of our audience is actually very highly intelligent people who are interested in growing, and they're trying to have new insights on different things, and different perspectives. So I feel like I feel like they're not very engaging in that respect, that they kind of listen for their benefit and then they just don't really contribute that much. And I don't know what exact factors are related to that, because I feel like some of I think a lot of people want to be careful with what they say on social media and who they throw their weight behind. And I feel like a lot of people are just, at least in the Muslim community, are very careful about that, and because they don't want to affect anything related to their friends and family. But listening to a 2.5 hour or even 2 hour episode, it takes a certain type of person, and it's not really reflective on it won't reflect in the types of shares or other stats. I'm not sure if those two can be associated together. So I'm still reserving judgment. I still have to do some more research on that and trying to figure out how audience engagement is relating to your numbers,
Yeah.
So one thing that I do notice though is this though. I think when you release a show on Twitter or whatever link we give, I think it does all right. But I've noticed that I think maybe one of the reasons why we don't have a lot of as far as like feedback is because I noticed that on our Twitter or things like that, we don't really post like daily things, or it's usually just an episode and maybe a retweet, but we don't really like engage. Like we tried some alternative things. Like remember we started doing Periscope a little bit here and there, and that brought a lot of feedback. Like we had like on one episode we had like 600 views on a video, right? And like, but those kinds of things as we open up to them, like, and give them more of an opportunity to provide like live feedback, I think we'll get a lot more responses. I think, and we're probably, we're growing into that. I think eventually we're trying to find the right way to do it. But
I think there's like 30 million Muslims probably, if you include Australia, Canada, UK, and America, right? So we have 30 million English-speaking Muslims, and out of that demographic, you gotta trim it down to the age group we're kind of looking at is 18 to 45-year-olds, right? And if you cut that, it's probably 10 million, right? And of those 10 million, you're really looking at people who are, who even know about podcasts. So we're really shaving those numbers down into very smaller segments of the population who we're even trying to reach out to. So many of our listeners are completely new to podcasts. They don't even listen to any other podcast but ours. So they don't know about when we're making references to Joe Rogan and Tim Ferriss. They have no idea. These guys are like guys who pull in billions of downloads a year, with a billion with a B, So it's a difficult challenge because podcasting is still so new to the Muslim community, and this way of engagement is completely new to them.
I think the other I've noticed is like we know some of our loyal supporters just because of the way they approach us. Like email is one of the ways we engage, and so people don't see that. So people will write to us, and they'll write like pretty detailed responses, and we know that number one, that they've been listening for a long time because they've been emailing us from day one, and they're very thoughtful. When they like what we do, they will pretty much tell us what it is they liked, and when there's stuff they didn't agree with, they'll let us know what it was, and they'll have suggestions. And it's not those emails for just suggestions, right? So I think and you notice the people who are like your avid followers. Like there's obviously the brother in New Orleans, Palinola. Like he loves us, right? Shout out to Palinola. I don't know what's his real name. Abraham?
Yeah.
Abraham.
Yeah, I was just gonna mention him. Like, dude, he's a loyal, like, ride or die, dude. Like,
yeah.
He messages me like every day a DM, like something new about what's going on in his day, and he's just like really like loyal like that, dude. I love the guy.
Yeah, he emails us. I only mention the people who actually are on social media because the emails, they probably don't want to necessarily be mentioned. Obviously Fahim from Canada, who Sim and I had a chance to meet a couple of weeks ago. So those are the guys that really you can, and I know Fahim's a guy that really supports Nabil.
And anyone who comes into town who's a fan of ours, we actually we have an open door, man. They come in, they sit down, they watch us record, and then they'll talk about it afterwards. So, we're not we don't pretend like we're celebrities or anything like that. We're an open book where everyone has access to our studio in the sense that, they can reach out to us and tell us, hey, can I come in and sit down and listen to an episode? And we're always open to that. And we've done that many occasions. So, yeah, I think in terms of accessibility, we've definitely hit our mark. If I can honestly critique myself.
Yeah. So Nabil, have you done things like Facebook Live or things like that where people are actually leaving live comments while you're doing a show, or any other type of platform? I'm just kind of wondering here just to see how that works out for you.
I've done a few periscopes, and those have been, I mean, they're hit or miss depending on how many people. Like, to get a lot of Periscope viewers or any kind of live viewership, you need to have a very large funnel. So your audience needs to be quite large. And the real number of views for a Periscope is after you're done recording. So your live numbers might be a little bit less, and then after the fact, it comes up on people's TL. And then they'll listen to it, and so you'll go from like a few dozen viewers to a few hundred viewers, like that. Facebook Live I haven't really done because for some reason, the connection is not very good over here. Periscope is a lot better, but it's something that I definitely want to get into. And it on Facebook especially, when you're live, it gets bumped to the top of everyone's feed, and they'll get notifications for it. So it's much easier to drive viewers that way. If you want to get started doing live video, then probably Facebook is the best because of the way the Facebook algorithm works. Like, for example, if you went live on YouTube, you'll get a much lower response because you actually have to have a very big, like a decent sized YouTube audience before you'll get any response. Whereas on your Facebook page, for example, you already have tens of thousands of Facebook fans. So that's going to be much better for you to build up your live video audience that way.
Is there a limitation on Facebook on how many videos you can upload, or?
No, you can do as many as you like.
And however long you want?
It can be hours.
Yeah, we got to start exploring that, fellas. But we got to be careful with what we say. These guys can be a little bit nutty at times.
And then the live video, you could have it something special, like where it's only up for a few days and then you delete it. So to encourage people to attend a live video session where you get an uncut episode as opposed to an edited episode later.
So we should plan a live session when I'm out there, so we can plan in advance and just do a live session.
It's a good idea.
Nabil, have you done any paid promotions, paid advertising on the Facebook platform?
I have run ads to some of my posts. That's very easy to do.
Yeah.
One of the easiest ways to get started is by boosting your post to your existing audience. So you'll boost it to your fans and the friends of your fans. And I did that for my Ramadan fitness post. So that got really high, like the reach was pretty good for the amount of money that I spent. But then I've got posts where I didn't do a damn thing, and then they got double the amount of traffic organic because it was so, controversial and viral or whatever.
Right.
It is.
Yeah. It's usually the controversial posts will definitely hit way more larger of an audience spectrum than any paid paid post will.
Yeah. I honestly, the best way to boost post is if you have a post that's already going viral organically, that's when you boost it. People will just upload a post and then boost that particular post without seeing the amount of traction it's going to get. And that's where you sort of lose money. Now, if I have a post that's already got like 20,000, reach organically, that's a post I want to boost because I know that's for some reason that's affecting people and it's going to spread even more. And that's how you boost it to go like viral, when it's already got traction organically. And that you got to be selective with the stuff that you do. And you can test that, you can do like, $5 a day, on a particular post for like 5 days or 7 days. And then you can experiment with it. And it's quite easy to get started. Yeah. So, do you guys have any plans to, grow the podcast, in some way by introducing like, a premium version for your select VIP fans?
No, right now we just want to remove any barriers, man. The podcasting platform, as I said, is still so new to Muslims in general. I think a lot of Muslims are still they're still learning about podcasts, and I think the ones that even know about podcasts are listening to non-Muslim podcasts and feel like those are more unrestricted and they're in their ability to entertain people. So I think one of the reasons why we are so sometimes can be so abrasive or callous in our discussions is because of that. We really want to entertain people, but also be a benefit to people as well, you know?
What about Mort and Mahin? Do you guys have any ideas, or you would sort of come up with a premium version of the podcast? Or
I've talked to actually, so Nabil, you know Khan Mirza in Dubai?
Yes.
Yeah, so I actually met him a few months back. He had some ideas for me. He's like, you guys could do something where you, like, because right now people have to download your episodes, but if you can make a top, you could even though your stuff is free, people like accessibility, so you could sell stuff for a very low price, like on an app, like, top 10 episodes or uncut things like that. So I know we've talked about it. I think the next step for us, and this is something that a lot of, like, even like Hasib Noura's, like when he was in town, he was like pressing us hard, like, you guys got to go YouTube. Yeah. Like I think that's probably the next thing for us is, video stream, because people love to see that conversation. And I think Mort's experiment Periscope,
definitely,
which is even not that really great quality, right? But if you look at, like, people like to see the expressions and how he looked like and all that kind of stuff. So the thing with that is we just have to be at that point where we can't really edit as easily as we do with just audio, which is a challenge. But I think that's kind of where we do. I would love to see us grow to the point where, we could monetize, to be brutally frank at some point, and maybe even, I don't know that podcasting could ever be a career, unless you're at, like, millions of downloads a month almost, right?
Yeah. I feel like based on the research I've done, right now it's the audience is just too small, at least as a Muslim podcast using with the Islam as the backdrop of it, So you've already restricted yourself into such a small segment of society that being a major podcast where you're bankrolling 4 or 5 people to be hosts, I think it's really difficult. Right now, I've set smaller goals, and I want to make sure that those goals are attained, like YouTube, and having a solid video platform. So once those things are accomplished, we'll think about those things. It's all step by step, man. Right now, people can get busy by just looking at the moon and forget about what's right in front of you,
Sure. One thing personally I think, and Sim alluded to this earlier, is that we have to be better at, like, we talked about this with Dr. Muhammad Gilan, we have to be better educated on subjects, better readers. Like, I think in our spare time, like, the more well versed we are in general, no matter what it is, it just makes us better hosts. I used to do Toastmasters back in the day. Something I've thought about going back to, just trying to find.
Yeah, I started that a couple months ago.
A group that's, like, local to my new area where I live now.
Do you know what Toastmasters is, Nabil?
Yeah, I do. We have one over here in Dubai.
Yeah. So I do that twice a month for the past couple months. So, but it's always, perfecting your craft, being as best as you can, in front of the microphone.
So, out of the 2 co-hosts that are present, I'm probably more the business mind, meaning I always have money in my mind, Nabil.
That's why he's on the right side. He's on the conservative platform always.
Yeah, because I'm about that money. But so I told Sim this a long time ago. I said, hey, listen, you're probably not going to make money off of a podcast, but one of the ways that I thought about is when we do, look, I told Sim and Maheen this. It's inevitable that this is going to blow up in some way. It's going to go viral at some point. It's going to happen. I really believe that, and I'm a very optimistic person, and I think people who are in business need to be that way, as long as you set the goal. But my idea is this: that if you're reaching 1 million, 2 million people, we could use this platform to push products or other things that maybe that will collaborate with other entrepreneurs or people that have products, and use this platform as a launching pad and receive benefits. Because the biggest thing is a lot of people will have a good product, but they have no one to reach. They have no way of reaching people. So, I mean, eventually maybe that could be an option.
That is definitely. And I always told these guys that I can't pay any of you guys anything, but if you guys happen to start up a website, you guys can always advertise on this platform. Obviously, you won't be charged, so you can definitely. So as you know, Nabil, tapping into a clientele is a big thing, right? Especially since people that are listening to us as loyal listeners probably trust us to a certain degree. So if we begin endorsing some products or pushing something and talking about it, it would be probably easier to push certain products. And I'm not saying we're going to push bogus products, but anything that we really feel like is a good product, we can push out to the viewers that we have. And those numbers, that is a good way to get a good jump start and a good word of mouth. It may not be the one that puts you over the top, but it's definitely a good way to get some initial capital and things like that. And so there are a few other ideas that we're working on. I don't want to say anything right now, but there are some certain spin-offs that we're working on, and possibly maybe we could. I mean, nothing's come to light yet, but just ideas back and forth. And so perhaps maybe we can expand the platform to cover other areas and not because I think in some ways. For the way that we started the podcast and the intention behind this podcast kind of limits some of the things that we can do. Some of the other areas of our lives that we have interest in, we can't necessarily tie it into the podcast, maybe because it's not just built for that. But perhaps we can use the platform to open up another type of media outlet that will essentially be generating money for us maybe in the future, Allah alam. But again, it's all open. I mean, that's the beautiful thing about having your own podcast, and the fact that it's organic, that Sims and Sheikh Amir and Moga just thought about the idea and they ran with it. But nowadays, I mean, we can take this any way we want to, essentially, and so it's really, we're going to have to just feel it out. I think the first thing, like they said, is video footage, and I think people will respond better to that once they become more familiar with who we are, especially with our faces and things like that. It kind of opens the door that we don't have right now, and it opens up a new market, and then from that point, I think, things can become, we have endless possibilities.
Right. I know one thing, but we talked about monetizing, but at the same time, you mentioned Ramit Sethi as someone that you are into, and I'm a fan of his as well. He talked a lot about adding value, I remember he's telling a story about how he spent like just 3 years adding value and not even thinking about money, and then he first put his ebook out. So I think that's something like being cognizant of and whatnot. At the same, like, we always want to make sure that we're adding value and putting out good product before we even think about asking people for money.
And that's kind of what I was telling Sim before. I'm like, look, remember I told you before, Mahin, I'm like, we're gonna grow. It's gonna happen as long as we keep doing what we do and put our quality, a product out there. It'll grow. Maybe not as fast as we'd like it to, but it will catch on. It will grow, and it has. I mean, alhamdulillah, we've seen the past year and a half. I don't think any of us thought that it would be as large as it is right now. And so that's the idea. I mean, we never really asked for money from anybody in the beginning or any of that. We just had an idea and a goal, and we're going to do it the best that we can, and it will be successful, inshallah. It will. I mean, I have confidence in it, and when it gets to that point where we're at that stage, we'll have a lot of leverage in terms of how we want to market products and which avenues we want to get into.
Yeah, those are some really good points, and I'm gonna drop my 2 cents on the business angle of it, and then we can close it out. I think from the angle of getting increasing your viewership, I think some of it falls on the responsibility of your viewers. I mean, if you're deriving value as a listener of the Mad Mamluks, from the content that these people are spending, 4, 5, 6, 7, maybe 8 hours preparing for you to put out every week, then, I mean, just to show your appreciation, because it's free content, the least you can do is go to the iTunes app and take 2 to 3 minutes of your time to go and find the podcast and leave a rating and a review. That's the least thing. Another way you can do it is, for example, if you create 100 T-shirts, Mad Mamluks T-shirts, and give it away to the first 100 people who rate the podcast, and then send you a screenshot of the rating and review, and you send them a free T-shirt. Maybe they just pay shipping or something like that. And once you get those T-shirts out, since it's a limited edition thing for the ratings and review people, then after that 100 is over, you can start selling the T-shirts, like if you want to monetize that way, sell a T-shirt. And I'm sure people would love to wear, cause you guys' branding is quite, eye-catching, and the colors are really nice. So people, I'm sure I would buy a Mad Mamluks T-shirt,
Yeah.
And then the second
I'm going to bring one for you when I come out there.
Just let us know your size.
Yeah, I think you're probably like a medium, right?
No, he's probably like a large or extra large.
Okay.
I'm a double XL. I got these guns, son. Yeah, and then the second way is I'm sure you've got the unreleased episodes, like from back in the day, and the episodes that, when Keeping It Real goes wrong, those kind of episodes. You could package those up and release it to your to your subscribers. And the only people who's going to buy is the people that really love your show. And I would gladly pay, $97 or, $100 for like a set of unreleased Mad Mamluks content, That's, as speaking as a consumer and somebody who listens to your material, I would definitely pay for, something like that. So there's endless ways to monetize it. And advertising is one thing. You don't need to necessarily advertise products. You could advertise events. If somebody has a event in the Muslim community and they want to advertise, you could charge like $50 or something for an advertisement. And that's quite affordable. These people are spending a lot of money on marketing anyway. Why don't they throw some your way?
Yeah. I thought about that as well, Nabil. How do you, just from an outsider's perspective, someone in Dubai, let's just say I aired some commercial about an event that's happening in Chicago. Do you feel like that would kind of, as someone who's part of the Mad Mamluk family of listeners, do you feel like you're kind of detached from that? I don't know, like that kind of worries me that I'm alienating listeners who are around the world from the experience, because we're moving away from the Chicago brand. We're branding ourselves to be international and advertising things that are happening in Chicago. I feel like it might alienate some listeners, I don't know how you feel.
That's a good point. Yeah. Okay. So that's a good point. But if you look at people like James Altucher, who gets, millions of downloads a month, he has ads that I probably would never buy from, in the beginning of the episode, in the middle of the episode, and at the end of the episode. Same with Tim Ferriss. He's got beginning and end. Joe Rogan has ads as well.
10 minutes of ads.
Yeah, so I'm a listener of the Mad Mamluks. I'm getting free content, amazing value every week. I never miss an episode. And I look forward to when the episodes drop. I'm going to sit through 2 minutes, like a 2-minute ad or a 30-second ad, in an episode. I don't care. It's no big deal. And if you do have, and obviously you do have plenty of people from Chicago listening, maybe you could advertise events in other areas of the country, so, it's as long as the advertiser is getting value out of it, and it's, and you're not, going overboard with the advertising, and rubbing your viewers the wrong way. As a viewer, I would have no problem sitting through a 30-second ad, because I know that, how much work you put into creating the content. So just, and you're giving it to me for free. So that's just a trade-off,
Yeah.
And even if you don't want to do ads, there are the other ways that I mentioned of monetizing your content,
Yeah, there are definitely good points to consider. Thank you for sharing that, Nabil.
All right, man. Let's close it out. Where can people find you guys?
Maheen.
Sure. The website is www.themadmamluks.com. Twitter, the Mad Mamluks. If you want us individual Twitters, what's yours? You set one up now, right?
Yeah, well, I don't even look at that though.
Oh,
I think it's just Mad Mamluks without the. I just didn't want anyone to take it. So.
Okay, I think Sims is just Mad Mamluks. Mort's is what? Mutawakil?
Yep, it's at Mutawakil, MUTAWAKKELL.
And then I'm MFI_81. And then I'm on Facebook as Maheen Islam. Don't send me a friend request. You can. I won't accept it. I generally don't. Unless I know you or I've connected to you in some way or I've talked to you. I'm not gonna, or you like.
Listen, to just reach out to him on Twitter, build a relationship before you send friend requests. That's all he's saying.
Yeah.
If you want to do a general
There's
thing, you
no-
can just shoot the madmamluk@gmail.com, and that'll be a generic email that you can probably reach out to the show.
Yeah, our Facebook page is the Mad Mamluks. I'm sure Sim has a similar outlook on Facebook.
Yeah, I mean, again, just reach out to me on Twitter, and we'll talk, and I'll definitely give you your time of day, and you won't feel like you're blown off as.
So we're in the process of like doing fan pages, so that way anyone can just like it.
I don't know about that.
No, I'm serious. No, because I've been talking to Sheikh Ahmed because obviously because it's easier. Because I don't want to be adding random people, like on my Facebook. Like I have family and stuff on that.
Yeah.
You got to just learn about privatizing all that. You can hide all that information.
Yeah, dude, but it's too much work, dude. I just want to do the fan page, dude. It's easy. If people could just reach out there and that's it. It's done.
Sure. Yeah, go for it.
And then our email is themadmamluks@gmail.com, and we have an Instagram page as well that I think Sim usually posts funny stuff. Like memes of Maulana Tariq Jamil and marijuana and whatnot.
Speaking of which, I got to put something up there.
Yeah,
right now.
but definitely. I mean, for those of you on Twitter, though, you could see me tagging Nabil in a lot of things I do. I do a light trolling on Twitter sometimes, and I'll tag Nabil into those things just to get a healthy conversation going. So you guys can find me on Twitter as well. Just peep Nabil's posts, and I'll probably be creeping somewhere in there.
For real. And I'll drop all of the links to your social media profiles in the show notes. One more thing for the listeners before we go. If you guys enjoy the Mad Mamluks content, if you enjoy the Becoming the Alpha Muslim content, here's what you have to do. If you don't have the iTunes app on your computer, download it on your computer, load it up, and then go to the podcast store, and in the search bar, search for the Mad Mamluks and search for Becoming the Alpha Muslim. You're going to get a bunch of results come up. Click on the podcast of either of these, either the Becoming the Alpha Muslim and the Mad Mamluks, actually both of them, and then go there and click on the rating and review. You don't have to leave a review if you don't want to. Just leave a rating, so you can click on 5 stars. It's going to take you, like, if you don't have iTunes set up on your computer, it'll take you 5 to 10 minutes at most. If you do have it already, it'll take you 2 to 3 minutes at most. And this is one of the ways that you, as a listener of free content that people spend many hours a week trying to publish for you all, that's the way that you can support the show and give back. And you have to remember that ratings and reviews are the way that the iTunes algorithm makes a show visible to other people. So that's one of the ways you can support the show. If you want more people to watch or listen to the Mad Mamluks and listen to Becoming the Alpha Muslim, one way you can support the show is by leaving a rating and review. And I'm going to leave detailed instructions with screenshots on how to do that in the show notes of this episode. So,
real quick, can you do that on Android, on the Android phone? Like just download iTunes? Or no?
Android doesn't have iTunes app. That's why I described the process on a computer.
Okay.
So if you have a PC, you can still download the iTunes app, and if you have a Mac anyway, it's already installed. Yeah. So the easiest way, if you have an Android phone, which a lot of people do, is to just do it via the PC. Yeah, it's going to take you a few minutes, but dude, you're getting hours and hours of free, amazing content from these guys every single week without fail. For free. So it's the least you can do. So on behalf of BecomingTheAlphaMuslim.com and the Becoming the Alpha Muslim podcast, I want to thank my guests, Sim, Mort and Maheen of the Mad Mamluks podcast, and big shout out to Moga and Sheikh Amir as well, who couldn't be here. Thank you guys. Jazakumullah khair for coming on the show, man.
Wayak.
All right, man. Wayakum.
All right.
All right. That's all. That's all for now. Jazakumullah khair for listening. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.